Hello and welcome everybody to the finals weekend for the Winter of Champions 2023 tournament. So on behalf of Restoration Games, we'd like to welcome you all to the conclusion of this awesome event. And joining me are these wonderful commentators here. First we have Connor, also known as Hat Chowder. Connor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Connor, I hope you're ready for some good Unmatched because this is going to be a blast. And also, a new face on the commentary crew, but I'm sure it's not a new face in the community altogether. We have Zach, or Darkblade113. How you doing today, Zach?
Doing well. As a lot of people probably know, I've done a lot of commentary for this event, but it's all been on my channel doing hosts and stuff, so this is not just the first time this tournament, but first time ever that I've been on the official tourney stream, so I'm super excited for that, and can't wait.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm very glad to have you on board here. So, we started off this tournament with 112 players, so it was our biggest event yet. They are growing each time, and you love to see it. But from those 112 players, we split everybody into 16 pools of 7 this time. And every opponent had to play a best-of-2 match, well, 2 games against each opponent, and then you tally up the scores at the end, and the top 2 would advance to the bracket. So there's been a lot of action already leading up to this point. For any of you listeners or viewers who maybe are unfamiliar about the game we are about to play, this is Unmatched, created by Restoration Games, and it's a fantastic mini skirmish game, and it's really easy to learn, but it is very, very hard to master. There's a lot of depth to this game. So before we jump into analyzing, the players and the matchups and all this stuff, let's go ahead and take a quick look at how to play this game known as Unmatched. Unmatched is a card-based tactical fighting game featuring various characters from history, literature, and fantasy. The goal? Reduce the opposing hero's health to 0. Players take turns performing any combination of 2 actions, from maneuvering, scheming, or attacking. A maneuver causes the player to draw a card from their deck and lets them move any of their fighters around the board. They may increase the distance of their move by discarding a card known as a boost. When a scheme card is played, simply follow the text on the card to complete the action. For an attack, the turn player will choose a card from their hand to place face down for combat. The opponent will have the option to place one of their cards down as defense. The value on the cards will determine the damage dealt in combat. Melee fighters can only attack adjacent spaces, while ranged fighters can also attack any space within their color-coordinated zone. Some characters have sidekicks to help them out, and others fight solo. Each hero has their own unique abilities and deck of cards to bring the character to life. Because in battle, there are no equals. All right, so there you have it, everybody. That's Unmatched in a nutshell. And again, if you have not played this game, I highly recommend doing so. It's just such a well-made game, and Restoration Games is an incredible company. They're very supportive of the tournament scene and everything we do here, so huge shout out to them. None of this would be possible without them, so you'll love to see that. Now, also, this tournament has been hosted on UM League website. I'm sure if you have been keeping up with the action on the Discord, you know all about this. But if you're unfamiliar, you can catch all the action over at umleague.net. So let's take a quick look at this wonderful website. UM League is your one-stop shop for all things Unmatched. Follow the official tournaments and see player standings updated in real time, along with detailed match data for each opponent. Join the ranked ladder and compete in monthly seasons with a rotating cast of fighters and maps. Study the fighter plays and win rate data to climb to the top and become the season champion. You can also find fighter statistics for every official fighter currently released and compare the win percentage to the sample size at a glance. Or dive deeper with individual win rates for each available matchup and find the most popular matchups to try out for yourself. Look up individual player data and see past performances and gain insight into their favorite fighters. You can find all of this and more over at umleague.net. Don't forget to join the Discord and get involved today. So there you have it. That's League there. Frank K is the man behind that, and a huge shout out to him because he has really just helped evolve the competitive Unmatched community into what it is today. So it's just a wonderful platform. He also hosts community-run events on the site as well. If you come up with an idea you want to run, reach out to him, and he may be able to facilitate that and really help everything run smoothly. So huge shout out to Frank, and make sure you guys check out League for all of your Unmatched data. So now that that is out of the way, we are going to jump into the match at hand. So we are going to have Kjet versus ETOCUD. Now, both of these players are obviously incredibly talented to make it to the top 4. And Zach, do you have any predictions on who do you think is going to take this match here?
Oh man, it's difficult to say. I've seen a lot of these players, not just in the past with either going against them or seeing their games, but also hosting them throughout the bracket. And I mean, Kjet has been doing tournaments for longer, so I think he has a bit of an advantage in that experience, and he's slowly worked his way up more and more. But Ito is just kind of been dominating, especially in bracket. And seeing some of the matchups that he's won, including ones that are not normally favorable for the fighters he's winning as, it's anyone's game really. So I can't wait either way.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And Connor, what are your thoughts on this matchup here?
Well, I've spoken to both players before today, and they both seem very confident in their abilities. And I know both of them are definitely excellent players to be making it this far, and both have pretty strong understandings of the meta. And as Zach mentioned, both players have. Well, Kjet has excellent experience with tournaments. ETOCUD has definitely proven himself taking on very challenging matchups. So I think really it's anyone's game.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And Connor, I heard you mentioned you had a chance to sit down with both of these players, huh? I heard it was something called the What Happened pregame show. Is that right?
Oh, that's absolutely correct, John. The What Happened pregame show was my delightful opportunity from Zero Skater 12 to interview each of the players before their semifinals match and kind of get insight to their path up to the semifinals and also kind of their thoughts and feelings about their upcoming match.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and treat the viewers to these interviews here. Check out the What Happened pregame show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the What Happened pregame show. I am here with Kjet. Kjet, you want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your unmatched path up to this great semifinals game we're about to see.
Thank you, Connor. It's nice to be here. I'm Kjet. Yeah, I'm in this semi-finals now, which is really nice for myself. I didn't thought I would get this far. I know I can play a little bit, but yeah, it's nice to get there eventually after my 3rd tournament. My first tournament a year ago, I could get to this place, but then I met Darkblade, and I was just playing for 3 months at that point. Yeah, he just completely smashed me to 0. Last year I met Baked Goods, didn't work out that well as well in brackets, but this year I was a bit more lucky.
So Kjet, what kind of preparations have you been taking for this match?
Usually the drafting phase is already 50% of my preparation. I think a lot of people neglect that, and I really focus on that, and usually I get advantage matches. So that's something that I work around as well for ETOCUD, and I'm going over and over that quite a lot. So that's a big part of my preparation, and of course, after drafting, you also need to practice some games.
Yeah, and ETOCUD is definitely a great player, so I am curious. You know, your match is going to come up with him. How concerned are you to play him? Do you think this is going to be kind of another easy win, or do you think this is going to be a battle for your life? Like, will this be getting you to sweat?
I think it was around the top 32 that Ito and I did a practice run, and we did 4 games, I believe. I won 3 of them, so probably I will be asking what happened afterwards.
Yeah, that was going to be my final question for you, man. It was going to be, will you be hitting him with the what happened if you win?
I will definitely.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining me, Kjet. Best of luck in your semifinals match.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome to the What Happened pregame show, and I am here with the one and only ETOCUD. ETOCUD, you want to introduce yourself?
Huh? Oh, yeah, sure. Future Unmatched champion here. That's it.
Great. And you want to talk a little bit about your path up to this point?
Easy wins.
Great. And what kind of preparation have you been taking for this intense match you're going to be facing?
Intense? Sorry, Connor, quick question. Do you know what the tagline for this game is?
Of course, the tagline is, in battle, there are no equals.
It's because in battle, I have no equal.
Great. So, on that note, how are you feeling about your match upcoming with Kjet?
Who?
Well, it seems like I only have one question left for you, my friend, and that is, will you be asking Kjet, if you win, what happened?
Look, Kjet is gonna lose so hard, he's not gonna know what hit him. And he's gonna be looking at me. And I'm gonna say, que mira, bobo, que miras.
All right, ETOCUD, I respect the confidence. Thank you for joining me, and good luck with your upcoming match.
All right, well, those were some bold words by Ito, so we're going to see if he regrets those words. But Kjet seeming very calm and collected. I would not underestimate him in the slightest. So it looks like the players are finished up with their drafting phase, so we're going to take a look at their fighter rosters and do a little bit of speculation. Let's see if we can kind of predict what we think is going to happen here. So on Kjet's side, we are going to see Daredevil, Bigfoot, Houdini, and Genie. So he has got the dynamic duo from the newest Unmatched set. Well, barring Teen Spirit, of course. But Ito has Dr. Sattler, Yananga, Moon Knight, and T-Rex. So he has the duo from Jurassic Park 2. So that's very interesting to see right off the bat. But Zach, what do you make of these lineups here?
So I think I'm gonna have to call out the most obvious thing to me, which is that we're not gonna see Ito have to do the uphill battle of Houdini into Sattler again. He got that one twice in bracket, and as people are figuring out during the pool stage, and I was one of those people who found out the hard way, Sattler pretty good into Houdini, which is why she's been seeing a bit more play than in previous events. But because Ito's got Sattler this time around, won't have to do that matchup. Maybe he'll try to line it up the other way, because I don't think most people would be able to navigate that one quite as well as he has. So that's the thing that sticks out to me immediately. Other than that, like, Bigfoot Yananga is a pretty popular thing to see. So if we get that matchup, it's always a very, very close one.
Right. Now, there was, we did have it mixed up a little bit. So it looks like Kjet actually had the T-Rex and Ito has Daredevil. So a little bit of a mix-up there. But I see...
It explains the Sattler pick, I was going to say, even more so, because Sattler not only good into Houdini, but also Rex. And both of those fighters normally like advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sattler on Kjet's advantage, trying to catch one of those two fighters in the matchup.
Now, Connor, do you think that Kjet is even going to assign the T-Rex with Sattler on the other side? And I think, honestly, Yananga, Moon Knight, and Daredevil can all hold their ground against T-Rex as well, but especially Sattler. I've heard rumors of, you know, her being able to defeat the T-Rex even with the monitor turned off. So do you think that's going to play a role in Kjet's choice to assign the T-Rex or not?
Well, with Kjet having the T-Rex and ETOCUD having Dr. Sattler, it's definitely going to be a big mind game, because in general, players like to put the T-Rex on their advantage, and with ETOCUD knowing that he might consider putting Sattler on his opponent's advantage. But that being said, if Kjet knows that and then tries lining up Bigfoot with Sattler, that could be very nasty. So I do think that both players have a strong understanding of the meta to a point where that mind game is going to pretty strongly affect their drafting decisions in regards to the T-Rex.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think either of these rosters are too heavily favored towards either side. I think the assignments are really going to dictate a lot about how this match plays out. So let's go ahead and take a look at the assignments and see the big reveal. All right, so game one, we're going to see Kjet's Genie versus Ito's Sattler. So I'm going to assume that was Kjet's advantage. If he was the leader, then that would be the case. And I can see why, again, Sattler was put on the disadvantage, like you had mentioned, Connor, expecting maybe the T-Rex. But I think Sattler's okay into Genie as well. But on a map like Hell's Kitchen, it might be pretty tough. And then we're going to see the famous Houdini versus Yananga matchup for game two. So that's always a close one. It can go either way. Being played on Hanging Gardens might make it a little tough for Yananga. And then game three, we're going to see Bigfoot versus Moon Knight. So yet another very, very even matchup there. So I think we have some great, great games in store for us, and I really can't predict anything based on these assignments. Zach, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so the first thing that sticks out to me is kind of exactly what we're looking at for the discussion before we saw assignments here, with Sattler trying to go on Kiet's advantage, which I don't think Sattler, if she had advantage, is ever going to pick Hell's Kitchen for Genie. So yeah, most certainly Kiet's advantage there. So smartly choosing to avoid the T-Rex and Houdini assignment. Um, Trying to make sure that you get a more favorable matchup against Sattler. While she can take on Genie, it's definitely a lot closer than either of the other two. She has quite the leg up against either Houdini or T-Rex. And then with Yen on Hanging Gardens, she can get into some trouble since there's ways that Houdini has to move you. But at the same time, if you can pressure Houdini's defenses and force him to come in to low ground to attack you, you can output counter pressure to make sure that he can't necessarily build up the ideal hands to be able to get big reveals off or whatnot. So those are the main things I'm looking at from the two advantage games.
Yeah, so let's take a closer look at the game one matchup that we're about to see. So just a little bit more zoomed in on the map there, we can see the Hell's Kitchen. And so, yeah, it was Kiet's advantage in this game one, so he is the leader as we expected. He picked both the map and the position. And let's go ahead then and we'll take a look at the Genie deck and check out some of the key cards and how this deck works. So, Connor, do you want to run us by the Genie here?
It would be my absolute pleasure, John. So the Genie is a 16 health, move 3 ranged fighter whose ability is at the start of his turn, he may discard a card in order to gain an action, meaning summon a Bloody Mary. He can have 3 action turns. The Genie in some ways is like a combo character, not in the sense like Bruce Lee of the Raptors where he gains infinite actions, but he can definitely build up a huge amount of cards to make his opponent very upset. So of course the Genie's key card is 3 Wishes, which allows between 3 options and an action gain between drawing 5 cards, the opponent discarding 2 cards of their choice, or each of his card values becoming 4 until the end of his turn. So definitely a very versatile card and can really apply to any situation, whether he needs additional cards to hit harder or just to mess with his opponent from afar. His next key card is I Made Sultans of Less, a simple 2-value versatile that after combat allows him to discard a card of his choice from his opponent's hand, which even further can really humiliate his opponent, which is in a lot of cases very humiliating because the 6 discards from 3 Wishes plus 2 from Sultans is a total of 8 discards, which is huge. And on this map, Hell's Kitchen, that'll be potentially up to 10 discards if the Genie can get things to go his way enough. Another very big key card is I Am Freed, a 3-value attack that after combat allows the Genie to teleport to any space in his zone and then deal 1 damage to each adjacent fighter. So not only is this some nice auto damage and teleportation, but it also allows for some nice crowd control plays. Especially if the opponent is trying to hide their 1 health sidekicks, he can definitely hop around and completely just dissect and disintegrate every last 1 health sidekick in the whole nebula. Another key card is the 3-value versatile, Wishing for More Wishes, which allows the opponent to draw 1 card and the Genie draw 3 cards. So not only will this allow the Genie to be hyper fueled for the entire game, but it may also keep his opponent close to him in fatigue and make it so his opponent cannot just simply scuffle around the map and attempt to fatigue him out. And finally, a very interesting card in the Genie's deck is the 0-value defense card, Back in the Lamp, which says immediately the Genie recovers 4 health. So at face value, this might seem like a common blank 4-value attack. However, it's more so a liquefied 4-value attack, because should the opponent attack with anything less than a 4, and the Genie is able to gain health, the Genie will be able to actually recover the difference between the opponent's attack and that 4 health. So the Genie, all in all, a very explosive and very interesting character.
Very well said, Connor. And the Genie has definitely become one of my personal favorites just because of how explosive he can be in a game. And even in disadvantaged matchups, you really don't know what's going to happen, because if he decides to pull the trigger and go aggressive, he might just, draw a ton of cards and completely just pressure you down. And it's really exciting to see, so I think it's going to be a treat for us viewers here. So then let's go ahead and take a look at the Genie's opponent, going to be Dr. Ellie Sattler. So, Zach, do you want to go ahead and run us by Sattler?
Yeah, sure. So Sattler, a really interesting fighter. Didn't see a ton of play when she first came out because she's a bit tricky to get to work optimally, but she does have some really good matchups within the meta, and one of those is Houdini, which is why I think she started seeing more play. So the main thing is her ability puts insight tokens on the board, and how the insight tokens work is she has 5 of them in her supply. And then whenever her or Malcolm, her sidekick, move to a new space, during part of any movement, whether that be from a card effect or a maneuver, etc., even an opponent's card effect moving her will do this. When she's placed in a new, or when she moves to a new space with a movement effect, then she puts one of those insights down on the board, as long as she still has one of them in her supply. And then a lot of her card effects interact with these insights in different ways. So the concept of attraction, as we see one of the defense cards here, it's only a 2-value block, but after combat, it lets you place whoever is blocking with it, either Sattler or Malcolm, in any space with an insight token. So this can help protect against pins or just get you to a new spot on the board in exchange for taking a bit of damage, since a 2-value block isn't normally going to full block most attacks. We also see Violently if Necessary, another one of those cards that plays off the insight tokens. This one very strong, a 3-value versatile that can be used either on offense or defense, of course, and after combat you deal 2 damage to each opposing fighter that's adjacent or on a space with an insight token. So this can be really valuable if you can set it up to hit multiple fighters, especially against opponents who have 1 or 2 HP sidekicks, because this will wipe them out and then potentially also damage the hero if you play around them properly. And then the final of the cards here on the highlight that shows off the interaction with the insights is Woman Inherits the Earth, which is probably the cornerstone card in Sattler's deck. It's a 2-value block, and you immediately draw a card, and you recover health equal to the amount of insight tokens on the board, and then you remove all of the insight tokens from the board. So this card, and then one of her attack cards called You Never Had Control, that's the illusion, both of them get more powerful the more insight you have, and then they remove them from the board so you can start setting them up again. And this can not only be nice to reposition insight, but also it's a bit of a cost, just so you can't constantly be doing these super powerful effects. And so with 3 copies of Woman Inherits the Earth in the deck, Sattler has a lot of potential healing, though it's not, it gets worse the longer the game goes on, just because it does draw you a card, and it is a low value block. So while you do get healing, in overall exhaustion considerations, it ends up not being too much at the end of the day. But if you can get them off early and not have that exhaustion matter, then a very strong card. And particularly notable that just like the Genie's Lamp, the heal happens immediately. So even if you were to take lethal damage over the block, the heal happens first, which can likely get you out of that range to not be defeated. So really nice, even when you're low, which not all healing effects are. And then the final 2 cards we see here are Sexism and Survival Situations, a very good card, usually for defensive purposes, as long as you're being attacked by an opposing hero. Not too good against sidekicks because it's just a 1 value, but a 4 value against heroes, and then it lets Sattler move 1 space after combat, which, if she has insight available and moves to a new space, she can place 1 down. And then the final card we see here, the Future X Mrs. Malcolm, probably the best art of any card in the deck. We've got Malcolm matching the mini that they did promotional with him, and this one, it's not often played if you're worrying about exhaustion situations, because it does draw you 2 cards, but it is one of the few ways, in fact I think the only way, that Sattler can place an insight down outside of moving around or attacking, because there is one Malcolm card that lets you place an insight after the combat, but this one lets you get that extra insight. And we did actually see that come into play during a bracket match, where if Sattler had 1 more insight, then she would have been able to use When Inherits the Earth to heal up out of range of one of the attacks. I actually think that was one of the matches that Ito played where he beat Sattler with Houdini. So A card that is a little bit more niche, but can definitely come into play if necessary. And of course, I mean, the art is just top tier. So
Oh, for sure. I'm glad you mentioned the art there because that's the reason the card's in the deck. Let's be
oh yeah,
real.
oh yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Zach, for running down Sattler there. And let's go ahead and take a look at the map. We're going to be playing on Hell's Kitchen, which is an extremely deadly Genie map. Because if you look here, the thing with Hell's Kitchen is that these yellow squares with the scheme icon and also the versatile ones as well, those are item tokens. And the items, the versatile ones, just buff up your attack or defense if you choose to use the item while you're standing on that space. And all the items are one-time use. But the scheme item tokens are extremely powerful effects on this map. So we are using the items that came in this box set, and they are randomly distributed on the board at the start of the game. So we have an item called the payphone here, and what it does is lets you get a card, any card from your discard pile back to your hand. So Genie, with the 3 wishes being an incredibly powerful scheme that gains you an action and has a plethora of amazing effects, most notably the discard, I would think, in this map, if you can get a wish back, you can use it 4 times throughout a game, and even twice on the first turn, depending on the item positioning at the start. So Sattler may end up starting the game with only 1 card in hand, whereas Genie has, you know, maybe a full hand of 5, and it's going to be really tough to handle the pressure from there. And then Genie will still have 2 wishes left over for the rest of that game. So it's just incredibly threatening. And that makes a total of 10 potential discards from Genie. So Sattler may be playing with only 2/3 of her deck while Genie is playing with the full 30. So that's it, just incredibly deadly. And it's, you know, it's a bit of a high roll. It relies on luck. You got to have good item positioning to start so that Genie gets to go first and get the item before Sattler can, because if the payphone is on the right side of the map under that player 2 starting position, then Sattler can put Dr. Malcolm on that space and block it. So that would be a problem, and it forces Genie into a tough spot of whether or not he wants to choose to start second, so he's closer to the payphone, but then player 1 gets the first turn, and they can maneuver and boost and, you know, stand on that space to, again, block the payphone because Genie is a solo fighter with no sidekicks. So it's a really high roll, it's a high risk, high reward map pick by Genie, but it can play off incredibly well. So we're going to see if Genie gets that explosive start. He also has to obviously open with 3 wishes in hand. So if we don't see it in the starting hand, I expect to see a mulligan from Kjet, and there's going to be some fireworks happening. So players are ready. Let's jump over to Vorpal board and see what happens in this awesome game 1. Okay, so right off the bat, we do see the Genie choosing to go first, and it looks like the payphone is just right next door. So that is the ideal start, I believe, for the Genie. And even the first aid kit is in the middle as well. So the worst of the 3 scheme tokens is on Sattler's side. So not even needing to, you know, block it off with Malcolm. We're just going to set Malcolm on this +2 fire hydrant token so we can have a little bit of extra defense if Genie decides to go on an early aggressive push. And it doesn't look like Kjet discarded for his ability at the start of turn, so not sure if he opened with the wishes or not, but let's see what happens.
Looks like it's just going to be a double maneuver onto the payphone to start controlling it, which, yeah, as you were saying there in the lead up, makes a lot of sense. If this is the positioning that Kjet's taking and not taking that extra action, I wouldn't be too surprised to find out that he has a 3 wishes in the opening hand, and would probably want to fire one off this next turn if possible, just to start getting that value.
Yeah, Zach, that's a great point. When you're the Genie, you're definitely mulliganing for those 3 wishes, because if you get into a really nasty situation where all of them are bottom 10, your essentially entire deck is pretty mediocre, and the Genie is definitely so powerful and so effective against people like Sattler because of those 3 wishes. So maybe Kjet's just playing it a little bit safe, knows that Sattler might have mulliganed for an actually bad hand, so that Sattler could discard bad cards. And maybe Kjet's kind of waiting for Sattler to sift through a few cards to make things a little bit easier for him in the long game.
That's an
Yeah,
interesting
an
point you bring up,
interesting
Connor.
note. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing about just making sure you don't have any, like, too many good cards in hand early on against Genie, just because if he does go for a big discard, you don't want to be forced to get rid of good stuff.
Right. Now, it would be an interesting situation, though, if Genie doesn't have 3 wishes here, because then what do, Zach? Do you think you sit and camp the payphone? Or do you maybe, like he's doing, use ability, move out, make an attack, and then just move back?
I think that's exactly what we'll see if we don't see a wishes, because you have to keep control of that. As soon as you end your turn not on the payphone, Sattler's just gonna, even if she has to boost, she's gonna get in there and take control of it to not give you that extra value. Because she has quite a few cards that she'd want extra copies of anyway, but furthermore, she doesn't want Genie to get a 4th copy of 3 wishes.
Definitely. And it's a little bit risky, though, too, because I believe Sattler has some cards that would let them move on defense with an attack. So I think they rely on winning the combat, which Genie doesn't often win. Oh, but Kjet, very smart to use the +1 item token here. So that is going to let him win the combat.
Yep,
Oh, but this is hey, 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 so it doesn't rely on winning.
it's true.
So if Malcolm was the one attacked, which it looks like he was, then
Well, that's
Sattler
gonna let Sattler yoink it.
is
Yep, and that's
standing
exactly
on the
what we see.
payphone.
Because even though Genie gets to teleport after, Sattler gets to go first because, as we all know, Defender resolves first.
Yeah, this is definitely turning into a very scary situation for Genie because Sattler has, it looks like 4 insights on the board right now, and now control over that item that can really make Genie so powerful on this map. So John, I'm curious. You said you were a big fan of the Genie earlier. What do you think you do at this point now that you've lost control of that scheme and there's so much insight on the board?
Well, honestly, Connor, that is a disaster of a start. Again, I mentioned earlier this map pick. It's high risk, high reward, and the risk did not pay off here, unfortunately, because even if Sattler just chooses to get back that hey, 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 like Zach had mentioned, that 4th wish, the dream of 4 wishes, is now gone. So I think that's going to make a huge impact in this game. And this map, honestly, it's not bad for Genie if he wants to play pretty aggressively because the zone layouts lend themselves well to him being able to just single maneuver and get to most zones almost at all times. But Sattler is very good at standing up to aggressive pressure. So it may be pretty difficult for Genie.
So we
Yeah, you make
see another boosted or another attack with one of the items. This time a +2 into Malcolm. It's going to be a freed into a life finds a way, so that's going to do. It's going to be a 5 value freed over the 2 value life finds a way, and so Malcolm took 3 and then healed or discarded the top card of Genie's deck, which was one of the 4 value. I think it's Careful What You Wish For is the name. And that has a 2 value boost, so Malcolm and Sattler both heal for 2. Sattler was full, so of course no healing there. And then Genie moved adjacent to Malcolm on the other side afterwards to get 1 more damage with Freed. So Malcolm already pretty low on health, and usually you want to take out Malcolm as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you make a great point, Zach. You definitely do want to get rid of Malcolm when you're playing against Sattler. And we do see Malcolm camping on that heal 2, draw 1 scheme item. So, Zach, my question to you is, at what point do you think that Sattler wants to pop that healing and heal Malcolm back up? Or do you think that Malcolm might end up just understanding that if he does stay there, he might just get comboed out and it might be more optimal just to retreat?
So we see Ito attacking with the other life finds a way here just to make sure to get that value. And now popping the heal. So I was going to say, Malcolm doesn't necessarily need to stick around too much longer, just as far as getting the value from his card plays, because usually those life finds away are the things you're really looking for. But keeping Malcolm alive is still valuable, not just for positioning purposes, but also for putting down insight faster, because obviously you do it twice as quickly when Malcolm can also be moving around. So I like the decision because it also lets you block with smaller cards like this and not risk Malcolm dying to chip damage.
So Malcolm has already taken quite a beating, but he's sitting pretty at 6 health right now. So Ito has got to be feeling pretty good about this. He pulled off both of his life finds away very early before Malcolm died off. So he also has control of the payphone. He's just getting the best of all the items, it appears. So I'm sure Ito is feeling pretty good about this game so far.
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially a perfect reversal, as ETOCUD is famous for. What could have been a dumpstering, as some might say, to Sattler because of the Genie's advantageous position has now turned completely flip side, with Sattler having all 5 insights, Malcolm at high health, and control over the discard recovery. And we still have not seen Kjet play any 3 wishes, so Kjet may be in that sticky situation of having all those wishes buried deep in the deck.
Yeah, that's always very unfortunate for Genie when, you find these openings like right now where Ito only has 4 cards in hand. A double wish turn could be really explosive and really turn the tide here. But, if you just don't have those wishes because they're buried in your deck, I mean, he still has 18 cards left in his deck. Who knows where those are at? So if the sooner Genie can find the wishes, the better, because he'll be able to make the best use of them when he finally gets the right opening. We are going to see the payphone getting back. Life finds a way. So that's just so good for Malcolm. It's going to keep him alive so much longer and gives an extra discard off the top of Kjet's deck here. So Sattler can struggle in fatigue in the long game, but I don't think we're going to see that being the case here with so many discards off the top of the deck from Sattler. And some pretty aggressive play as well by Ito, so using those attacks essentially as passes.
And John, I know earlier we talked about how in the What Happened pregame show, Kjet seemed very cool and composed, and ETOCUD was very confident in his abilities. But now it seems almost as if it's reversed, as ETOCUD seems very calm and passive with the way the game's going in. Kjet is fidgeting more, picking at himself more. So John, how do you think the mental toll of having such a negative start could detriment Kjet's playing ability throughout this game?
Well, I think honestly it could impact it a lot. No matter how good of a player you are, this is like the highest point in Unmatched, right? This is the most grand stage you can be on, and nerves can definitely get to you. So, Kjet, I think, although he has kind of failed the plan of the map pick at this point, he's definitely not out of it. So what he needs to realize is that he can still win this game. He still has all of his wishes and his sultans, all of his power cards still available to him. And although Malcolm may still be alive, he might have to decide to pivot his game plan and just target Sattler and maybe find an opportunity, a window to burst her down when there's no insight on the board so that she can't heal off of the Woman Inherits the Earth.
Yeah, you make a great point that it did seem like the Genie had an advantageous map choice, but it seems almost as if Sattler has completely flipped the map on the Genie, and now it's bolstering Sattler's ability to win, because not only has Sattler recovered one of Malcolm's great opposing blind boost cards, which essentially blind boosts for healing from the opponent's deck, he's also healed Malcolm back up to get the ability to play that card. So although the Genie on paper may have been at advantage on this map, it seems like Sattler has completely utilized map to his favor.
Yeah, she really has, and that's, again, going back to the high risk, high reward. So the risk just didn't pay off here. And it's definitely putting Genie in an uphill battle for sure. But again, like right now, we could see Genie defend with a Sultans and rip one of Sattler's cards out of hand, putting her down to 4 cards. And with Kjet at 6, 2 of those maybe wishes, ditch Sattler's hand, and Genie could go potentially for lethal.
It is scary taking 5 here if you Sultans and it's a illusion. But if you do have that setup, it might be worth going for.
I think at this point, you need a setup like that to turn this game around, because it's not looking good otherwise.
Yeah, and one of the things I mentioned earlier about Malcolm not needing to stick around because he's used both Life Finds the Way, that was before Life Finds the Way was recurred, and so still has another one able to use, as you guys have been kind of looking at the considerations for exhaustion. And yeah, we do see an illusion there, and unfortunately for Kjet, it is still 5 damage, but does not get the Sultan's discard, only gets 1 auto damage back with I Grant You Death, which is not terrible, of course. Auto damage is always nice, but you would have preferred to probably get the discard there if you're already blocking for just a 2 value.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the I'm guessing that the map that Ito banned was probably something like Solomon's. Solomon's not only the map that comes with Houdini and Genie, but one of Genie's best maps. Really good for any ranged fighter, especially move 3 ranged fighters, just because you can often position in a way that lets you reach any zone in a single maneuver. And with Genie having the ability to ditch a card for an extra action, that lets him potentially double attack even if he doesn't start in the opposing fighter's zone.
Yeah, King Solomon's Mine is definitely one of, if not Genie's best map, because he can put out so much aggressive pressure on that map so easily by using the passageways. Although, again, Sattler can hold up really well to aggression, as shown in the T-Rex matchup. So, because of that, I think it looks like Ito did actually ban Yukon, which makes a lot of sense,
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's the other death of Sattler, is you take her to Yukon, you kill off Malcolm, and now she's stuck never being able to attack you the rest of the game because of the length of the loop and her boost values being too low, being a move 2 melee fighter.
Yeah, that was a clear blind spot for my analysis there. Yeah, the ban pretty much always has to be Yukon when you're Sattler, because yeah, if Malcolm goes down, which the opposing fighter, if they know, and anyone at this level will know, they're just gonna lay everything they have into Malcolm, and once he goes down, Sattler can just actually not do anything.
Yep.
So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And we see the sexism in survival situations on the block really good against Genie, not only full blocking the attack there, but also avoiding the auto damage from I Grant You Death. And also putting an insight down, building back up after that illusion removed everything.
Yeah, you both make great points, and a lot of people in the stream chat have also been pointing this out, that the Genie, even in this really scary situation, is very volatile and definitely could have an explosive turn, especially if Sattler succumbs to an unlucky hand and just does not have what she needs at the time of a big attack. Especially if Kjet gets like a sudden surge of all his wishes back to back, he definitely could have a moment where he just cleans out ETOCUD's hand and then hits for a monumental amount of damage.
Yeah, exactly. Volatility is just, that's the Genie's thing. So you can never fully count him out until the game is over. Looks like players are just discussing, they may have made a misplay of
Yes.
Sattler moving too many spaces.
Yes. So the previous turn when Ito boosted into attack with. Yeah, when Ito boosted into attack with the illusion, apparently a 3 boost was necessary for Sattler to reach Genie, and she boosted with a concept of attraction, which is only a 2 value boost, meaning that she would not have been able to reach. However, the way that the players seem to have resolved it is Life Finds a Way was a known card at that time because that was after Sattler had got it back with Payphone. So the players just swapping the Life
boost.
Finds a Way for the concept of attraction as the boost instead, since it's not a situation where Ito could have drawn it after that boost was required to reach Genie. So they decided to resolve it that way, and Ito would have had better 3 value boosts that he could have boosted with, but I think that's makes the most sense on how to resolve it.
Yeah, that's definitely the fairest way to resolve. It is a little bit unfortunate for Ito because, you know, now he lost a very good card, but again, misplays happen, and what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and it can be difficult, especially when you're not only worrying about all the different things like item tokens on this map and the insight tokens that Sattler places down, but also just the way that this map connects in a few areas is a bit wonky with the ranges. So
It
easy
is.
thing to overlook, but I'm glad that the players caught it, and I'm glad that they were able to resolve it properly.
Yep.
And I'm almost wondering if ETOCUD's tactic with going for the Malcolm heal was to try popping a 3 wishes out of the Genie's deck, because if he could potentially get one of those three wishes out of the genie's deck after already burning that discard scheme item, the genie would be running really low on fuel to get that explosive turn, because with three wishes, the genie still could really just completely clean out Sattler's hand and then just one-shot her.
Yeah, and she is within that sweet spot lethal range, being at 12 health. If you can pull off 3 4s as the genie, you can close out in a single turn. Obviously, that's incredibly difficult and near impossible now that both I Am Freed have been used up and one of the Careful What You Wish For. So there's only 2 printed 4s left for Kjet, but there are ways to get additional damage with things like Imprisoned Wrath and whatnot. So. Oh, wow. Look at this interaction. The
Oh, that's
defensive regroup with the +2 matches
Gonna
and
draw
wins.
3.
So they're both going to draw 3 here.
Yep. Draw 2
Wow.
from regroup winning and 1 more from wishes. So normally wishing for more wishes gives Genie an advantage in how many cards get drawn, but not in this case. Very funny there.
Both
Yeah, that
players
was
sitting at 8 cards.
Yeah, that was a great regroup from ETOCUD. I know a lot of people like to make fun of regroup, but with regroup being bumped up to a 3, ETOCUD definitely sensed that the genie is going for some sneaky card draw, and he's completely avoided any potential of getting completely wiped out.
Yeah, against Genie, who mostly attacks with 3 values as well, you're more than likely going to win with regroup when it's a 3. The only thing that Genie can really attack you with that won't do so is going to be the 4 value. Careful what you wish for, and of course if he has value set to 4 with wishes or something, but that wasn't the case here.
And we've seen the genie spend so many resources on Malcolm, because Malcolm has been using big regroups, tons of healing from the schemes and his own cards. So, you know, John, at what point as a genie do you say, all right, Malcolm's used both of his healing schemes, and he's just being too pesky, and I need to combo Salad before I have no resources to do so?
Honestly, now. I think Genie needs to flip the switch very soon, or else it's just going to be too late. I mean, you've used up 4 out of your 5 big damage cards, being the Careful What You Wish Fors and the Freeds. So it's just your damage is dwindling, and you're going to have to flip the switch probably right now, because especially Sattler just played Illusion and cleared off all of her insight. Genie took a big chunk of damage over top of the lamp there, putting him down to 5, with Sattler sitting pretty at 12. But I think you're going to have to make that choice very soon. And it is tough because Sattler's sitting there at 7 cards, so Wishes is not necessarily a threat to knock out the full hand. And as long as Sattler can keep 1 card in hand, you know, she can keep a valuable defense that'll most likely give her movement, something like the sexism in survival situations. Although that wouldn't get her out of the Genie's zone here, so I think this right now is a pretty good opportunity for Kjet.
Yeah. So many resources, like, there's some parallels to a character that I play a lot in Little Red, where Sattler, one of those fighters that her sidekick is very important to her overall game plan, and even and it's kind of a similar situation as well. You don't really want to be going after Sattler while Malcolm's still around, because if you do, the Malcolm healing can heal both him and Sattler, and Sattler much more defensive than Malcolm overall. And so trying to burst down Malcolm to take away that utility is usually preferable, the same way that you want to take out Huntsman before hitting red at all. And because of that, you're not going to necessarily get full value out of the cards. For the Huntsman situation, you're not going to get value out of the Huntsman heal scheme, most likely. And for Malcolm, you might not get the full healing from Life Finds a Way for both him and Sattler. But you can kind of judge, or at least I usually do, judge how effective the sidekick was based on how much your opponent has to put into them to take them down. And Malcolm's been taking a lot this game.
Yeah, he's barely hanging by a thread here, even defending an attack at 1 health, and Chaotician being a 2 is not very likely to keep him alive, but definitely it looks like it paid off for Ito, because he will live to see another day. But we're going to see the first Sultans coming out by Kjet, so he gets to take a look at that hand, which is absolutely stacked. So
Yeah.
I will say, although the deck counts are 9 to 12 right now, if Kjet has all 3 wishes at this point specifically, he can ditch Ito's full hand, and Ito's going to lose so much value. He's going to lose all of
Yeah.
his healing, most of his auto damage, and I believe is that the last of the 7s.
Yes.
So he would just lose so much effectiveness out of Sattler's deck if Kjet has the 3 wishes to play this upcoming turn. I think that would be the kind of swing that Kjet needs to take this game.
Yeah. I think the main things that he's considering right now are between Illusion and one of the Violentlies, because one of the things that Chaostician did there is put a token right next to Genie, so if he wants to attack first action, um, or at all during the next turn, he's going to have to uh, risk taking that damage. However, I do think this is actually Genie's. Was this Genie's second or third action? Well, does he have one more left?
Um,
I think this might be his last action because
I
yeah,
believe
I
he
don't think
attacked
he's.
with wishing for more wishes first into. Yeah,
Yeah, it does look like it's going back over. So Sattler does get to potentially get another card here, though. She's either going to overdraw if she maneuvers twice, or if she maneuvers and then attacks with something like the Violently, it will be a situation where she goes back down to 6. So there is that opening for Genie to potentially um, discard everything in her hand.
right.
Uh,
And with the hand limit being 7 here, even if Ito chooses to double maneuver and overdraw, he's going to ditch the worst card in his hand, and he may have one additional card in hand that he doesn't really care about, essentially
yeah,
just a throwaway. But we know that most of his hand is just absolute gas. So,
yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
really high
again,
value
if
hand.
Genie has the 3 wishes, I think now is the time to throw those down.
Yeah, this is definitely the breaking point in the game where if the genie has what he needs, he could just completely shock the audience and can make a huge comeback. But if he does not hit the perfect turn very, very soon, then Sattler will just keep going on this linear path to just slowly punching away at him with huge attacks.
Yeah, there is a decent
Illusion's
deck
gone.
disparity.
All of the illusion's gone, but Sattler does still have the often be a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, the 0 that turns, it would be a 6 right here.
Yeah, probably violently though. Oh, okay.
Was a globe. Genie canceling that since Defender resolves first.
And
So
I
even
think that's what
though,
Ito was wanting, because there's only one inside on the board. It would have only healed for one. I mean, Sattler
well,
only has
2,
one missing,
right.
so. Um, oh yeah, two. Sorry, two.
Yeah, I
But
think
it
I
would have
think
actually
Ito's
only
pretty
healed
happy
for
with
one
that.
in this spot.
Genie gonna use the map token just to be able to get a pass, it looks like.
Also, I think
Playing the
he
long
can't attack
game.
Malcolm unless he does this. No, no, Malcolm I think actually still is in the zone.
No, he's not. They are in different zones, so the map did let him attack Malcolm. And knocked out a feint too, which is always good. At least just to get any card out of hand right there is good. So I think Kiet's pretty happy about that turn.
And so since we didn't see the Violently before, this is probably one of them now. Ito wanting to try to clear out the way of feints before attacking here. If Kjet has a feint here, feint's good into pretty much anything Sattler can attack with. I think
I like the lamp play.
yeah, that
Only
also
1
works
net
quite well.
damage.
Yep, because you heal for 4, then you take 3 from the value, and then 2 from the after combat.
Mm-hmm. So go from 5 to 9,
A lot better
down to
than
6,
blocking
down
the
to
illusion
4.
with the lamp like we saw earlier.
Definitely. Although that is one of Genie's best defenses into the illusion.
Yeah, yeah,
Since
no,
he
for
doesn't
sure. If you
really
don't have
have
the feint.
value blocks.
Yep. Unless you want to draw 6 with Torment, but as far as
That can
not
definitely
taking
swing a
damage,
game.
lamp's one of your best. Yeah. The other thing is all of the back-end businesses seem to be really low in deck, and between not being able to like build up hand too much from this point on, as well as the fact that wishes can cause discards to keep you low on hand even if you do find the back-end businesses later. Those cards probably not going to be super impactful as long as Kiet can play around it properly.
Yeah, I think honestly there might be a big health disparity, but if Genie can stay relatively even in the deck count, I think he could still take this game even from a value standpoint because he does still have 7 discards and Sattler has 14 cards left. So that would be essentially half of the cards remaining.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. And we also have seen Salah playing regroups, which means those discards will have a higher probability of hitting something that actually is much more valuable in the late game.
Yeah, those defensive regroups, he was using them on attacks into Malcolm. So what that told me was Ito didn't really care if Malcolm died at that point in the game and was more so just digging for his power cards. And I think that worked a little bit too well for him now, seeing as his hand is just chock full of them. Puts him at high risk for the 3 wishes. Another great lamp. I'm sure Kjet was hoping it was going to be a globe there so he'd actually net 2 healing because he is very low. It's a little risky. You know, once you get down to 2, you're in big trouble because then attacking into something like Lock the Doors will mean a lethal.
Yeah, just barely staying out of that range for now. So we know in hand for Ito is 2, Woman Inherits the Earth, and then do we know the last card, or is that unknown?
I believe that's unknown at this point. I believe it was the card he
No.
drew for his maneuver that we do not know of.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm Kjet and I'm the Genie at this point, I'm thinking, okay, now's the time. I got to take my ability, pop a 3 wishes to draw 5, hope to draw into the other wishes if I don't already have them, along with some attack power, ditch Ito's hand and just go for a big push. And also in the process, you're getting rid of the rest of Sattler's healing. So Sattler is top decking on her next turn, probably double maneuvering, hoping to draw defense. And those 0 value versatiles are not very good defense in that point. They'd only be 1 value. So you can hopefully, you know, close it out. Even if you don't finish it this turn specifically, you can close it out on the following turn. That is what I want to see from Kjet here. But again, we don't even know. He may not have any of the wishes at all at
It'd be
this
very
point.
unfortunate with 9 cards left in deck if he still doesn't have any of the wishes, but given the amount of time thinking, he could be thinking here, trying to figure out if he can do what you're saying with the wish combo and how likely it is. Because if he draws 5, he's very likely to find more wishes if he only has 1 right now.
This is the patented Darkblade turn.
Yes. Yeah, this is the type of turn I always advocate for in really close matchups and ones that matter a lot. Is even if you burn like a minute or 2 of your bank, or potentially even more, during crucial moments like this, just to get extra time to think and figure out what you're gonna do, it can make the difference between winning and losing. So using as much of your time as possible is something that I think the best players take advantage of, because you don't get any bonus points for having time left on your clock at the end of the game. So
He's
as
going
long as
for
you
it.
don't completely run out, you're good. And yeah, we see it. We see doing the draw 5, probably just looking at the options he had and deciding to going for it now is the best chance he's got.
Yep, yep. You'll love to see it. Hopefully he drew into what he needed.
Yeah, the thing that you don't want to see if you're Kjet is only 1 of the 2 remaining wishes here.
Right.
Because if you let Sattler, if you leave Sattler with 1 card, she can hold on to a Woman Inherits the Earth and then block with that, which will draw into potentially another defense card, even though, you know, the zeros are blank zeros at that point. And you know, the best you have outside of that is maybe 2s or 3s, but still, it could be enough to make sure that Genie can't just kill you. Which, I mean, if he's able to ditch everything and then hit you with 3 4s, then you would go down. Although I don't think he has the fuel for that. Yeah, because he needs either Freeds or careful what you wish for is if he doesn't have a 3 wishes to set his values to form.
Yeah, he's going to need probably to use the action
Yeah.
gain here.
So
So,
the concept of attraction, so we know that there's 1 inherit left in hand.
yep. which does put Kjet in a tough spot because if he wanted to discard again, he's losing some value, but he is going to hit it.
All right.
So he is going to get some.
Did
This
have
is
it.
exactly what I wanted to see. So now Kjet can hopefully get some good damage here. He got rid of all of Sattler's healing. There's minimal auto damage left. There's a 4, and then Genie's just going to have to hope that Sattler doesn't draw into defenses on the next turn, or at least just the 0 values that would then only be a 1.
Yeah, we see Kiet running very low on time. So Darkblade, I know me and you on your streams, so shout out to Darkblade on Twitch. Have I know we've been talking about how the timer definitely is utilized in different ways, not only just to keep the players playing at a good pace, but it also can definitely put some pressure into situations. So Darkblade, how do you think Kiet being so low on time will affect his decision making?
He is going for
Okay.
the attack.
Yep, he had to make that last. Ooh, okay, and that's not exactly what you want to see,
Tough.
of course. Not getting any value there from the Sultans, but still not bad overall. An interesting play could have been to use the second, and this might factor into some of the time spent thinking, being before the wishes instead of after. But if Kiet use the first wishes to draw 5 like he did, and then the second one to make Ito discard 2, he knows that Inherit is the last card in hand for Sattler, and then he uses the last 3 wishes to set value to 4 and attack first with that Sultans. And it'll discard the card that gets drawn by Inherits the Earth. And Inherits the Earth, Sattler was at 12, and she had, I think, 2 tokens on the board, but she would have only healed for 1. And then Sultans would have done 2 over that, put her down to 11, and then ditched the last card she had, and then he could have done 4 and...
Ooh, we see a damage
3.
here. Very nice.
A good feint over that sexism. So yeah, I think there's maybe a route there where Sultans lets you ditch the last card and set your values to 4, so you maybe get a little bit more into Sattler overall, but I think, you know, getting as much damage as he did and getting rid of the rest of Sattler's healing was still a huge turn for Genie there.
Right. Although you do bring up a really interesting play. That would have been pretty cool to see. But now we're seeing the zone layout on this map working out for Genie, because it's really easy for him to find center stage, what I like to call it, where he can just do a single maneuver and get to everywhere, every zone. So with Sattler having such low hand count, you know, and probably some of those 0 values that go based on your hand count, he probably doesn't want to boost. Oh man, they're down to 1
boy.
apiece.
Oh boy.
And does Genie have any of the I grant you death remaining? No, unfortunately not.
Nope.
Looks like the only attack left is going to be wishing for more wishes. I feel like
Yeah,
there's
might
2
be
other
the
cards.
case.
We're missing something.
Oh, both of the throwaway cards. The one
Oh,
value.
you're right, the 1
Parlor
value.
trick. Yeah.
Hey, undefended, that can win the game.
Sorry.
Definitely, it definitely could win the game. And also, Sattler's defenses don't always have the best number value. So, well, I don't know. Genie definitely is running very low on fuel, so it's gonna be tough,
Yeah,
especially
the
with
unfortunate
Teague
part
on the
about
horizon.
Parlor Trick is it actually makes well, I was gonna say it makes
The
back in
0,
business better,
yeah.
but it doesn't actually.
Right.
Or no, it does. It does because well, depends on how many cards Sattler has, but the order would be if Genie attacks with it, Sattler blocks with the 0, she gets set to her hand size, and then she gets set to the boost
The
value,
boost
which
value,
is 3
right.
after that. So if she has less than 4 cards, then it actually would be preferable.
Ooh, that's the situation we needed to see, but for Kiet's offense, was that wishing for more wishes into the feint for the final damage.
It does stop Get from going down here, though, because if it was anything else that Sattler was attacking with, it either goes undefended and Genie takes at least 1, or he full blocks, but then he draws and goes down to exhaustion.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't think, as long as Sattler has anything to block with here, she's gonna survive.
The last card in deck is the other parlor trick. Wow, those were probably bottom 2.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, unfortunately, parlor trick on offense can never land any damage because it's only a 1 value. And we are going to see the feint for the lethal. Wow. That
So
was
maybe
such
that
a close game.
Sultan's play that I talked about would have made the difference in health, seeing as Sattler ends at 1.
It
I think
could have
been a slight damage
You
difference.
never know.
But it's always tough to see those things.
Oh, yeah.
In the moment.
Let's take a listen in on the players here.
You had just 4 or 3 cards even, so that was the ideal moment to do it. But yeah.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't had to discard, because what I would have actually discarded, I was boosting it anyway because I wanted to get rid of the tokens, but I would have boosted with this instead of this.
Yeah.
But of course you didn't know I had this, so the fair thing was to boost with this.
Oh, true. Nice.
Yeah, because there was no proof I had that, so that's the easy way to resolve it.
Yeah, that's
But yeah, good game.
It was nice for me though, but
Yeah, but it's the fair thing because I fucked up.
yeah.
All right, so that game just coming down to the wire. 1 health apiece at the end with an offensive feint for lethal. I think that was definitely not how I was expecting that game to go initially, but it was very exciting in the end. So, Connor, what are your thoughts on that game we just saw? Oh, Connor, you're muted.
It wouldn't be well. We definitely saw ETOCUD claw his way back from a very difficult matchup. And you know, Genie on that map can definitely be a nightmare to play against, especially with so many discards. But you know, I think really what it came down to is the Genie didn't have his big turn early enough, and then finally at the end, Sattler just by an inch pulled it back. Because if that extra wish had been gained, ETOCUD might not have had the defenses to stop that parlor.
Definitely. And Zach, like you said, I think, you know, maybe if the wish turn was played a little bit differently, Genie might have had the damage to close it out, but it's so hard to tell, especially in the moment. And with Kiet's timer running so low, he's got a lot of pressure on him in that situation. And I know from personal experience how difficult it is to play Genie in tournament because those turns, there's just so much to think about, and it takes so much time to try and figure out your game plan. And then you kind of left scrambling at the end. So it's just really hard, and there's so many different outcomes. But I think that would have been really cool to see. But, I mean, is this how you expected it to go, Zach, or what?
I don't think so, because one of the things that you want to see as Genie on this map is using the payphone, and it starting on your side makes it easy to do so. One of the things that I didn't mention at the time, but I believe was the case, was if Sattler had been attacked there instead of Malcolm, the hey would not have been able to let Malcolm reach the spot. I think he was 5 away from the payphone, and Sattler was like I think only 3 away. So since hey only moves the other fighter, that would have it would have potentially let Genie actually get back on that spot, either with another maneuver if he had another action, or just with the free teleport if he was fine giving up the 1 auto damage, which to keep a hold of payphone I think he would be. And so and with the +1 on the attack there, if you attack with freed like he did, you also win over the must go faster, which is the 3 value versatile that either Sattler or Malcolm can block with, and if you win the combat, you get to place each of them in any space, but that requires you to win, unlike hey. So hey, the only card there that punishes what Kiet did, and unfortunately for Kiet, Ito had it and blocked with it. So
yeah, and that's
a bit of
really
a risky call, but didn't quite pay off for Kjet in that situation.
Yeah, and it may have been a deck unfamiliarity situation as well, because I know, at least myself personally, I don't play a lot of Sattler as or against, and so I'm not the most familiar with that deck as I am with the rest. And, you know, with Sattler's deck in particular, there's so many of those one-of cards that they just seem kind of random, right? And they all do, well, not all of them, but some of them do similar things, but just a little bit differently. So Kjet may have just, that might have slipped his mind, right? The existence of that hey, hey, hey effect. He might have, obviously, I think he was considering the must go faster because he was attacking with the token to make sure he won that combat, which was very smart, but he neglected to consider the hey, hey, hey. And if he had, yeah, like you said, he could have attacked Sattler instead. And that might have, you know, changed the outcome because he also did have the idea of, I want a teleport effect so I can get back onto the payphone. But I think he was just put into a tough situation at the start because my guess is he did not have the 3 wishes to begin with.
Yeah.
Because I think if you do have it, you just take your ability, you maneuver up to that spot, you pop the wishes as your second action, which gains you 1, so then you still have actions. Then you use the payphone, you get the wishes back, you pop it again, so now Sattler's starting the game with 1 card in hand, and then you maneuver and you take center stage as your third action of that turn. So you end your turn with, I think it's 5 cards in hand, maybe 4, but Sattler's at 1, and you still have 2 wishes left in the deck, and it's just a devastating start. So my guess is that Kjet didn't have it, and with Genie being a solo fighter, it's just really, you're put in a tough spot because you either have to camp the payphone and overdraw, right? You just literally don't budge and you be stubborn and you sit there and wait. But who knows how long you have to wait for, right? If you're not drawing into it, that's just really tough. Or you abandon it, and that's what he did. He, you know, tried to have a contingency plan, but Ito just had the perfect punish, and I think we see him defy all odds yet again. So he's definitely, you know, pulling out some great wins here. So we're going to be going into game 2. It's going to be Houdini and Yananga. So that's going to be played on Hanging Gardens. Now, this was Ito's advantage. So he picked the map, and he picked the position. So what do you think about this choice, Connor, as far as the map and the position goes?
Well, you know, this is definitely a very almost a new classic with the Houdini Genie set. You know, this matchup was essentially it can be foreseen, similar to Bigfoot Yananga in the past tournament, because Houdini is such a strong fighter and Yananga is always gonna be a strong fighter. These two titans colliding was definitely highly anticipated, and it's a very interesting matchup because almost in the first half of the game, Houdini has it favored with his effects not being able to be stopped. But then in the second half of the game, if Yananga is able to hold on, then she becomes favored because then with Houdini running solo on fuel, she can really maneuver around any real damage output.
Yeah, great point. And I just think it's interesting with the map especially because if Houdini was going first on this map, I think it'd kind of be a nightmare for Yen because he can just deal so much damage with the high ground on turn 1 before Yen has a chance to, you know, position better. But with Yananga being full advantage, she'll obviously be starting first, and I think that definitely can change the whole, you know, dynamic of this matchup on this map. Anything can happen, but let's go ahead and take a look at the decks here. So we're going to start off with Houdini, one of the newer fighters to enter the tournament scene. So Zach, do you want to give us the rundown on Houdini?
Yeah, sure. So Houdini has kind of exploded onto the scene recently. Ever since his release, people started testing out with him and realizing that he's a pretty good fighter. Houdini has a mechanic that's unique to him, in that he has boost tricks. So as you can see on some of the cards displayed here, there is a text box that is attached to the little circle that has the boost value of the card. And the way that this works is whenever Houdini uses that card to boost, whether it's for a card effect or a maneuver, etc., he gets an extra effect based on what the boost trick says. So for instance, misdirection is a 1 value boost, and whenever he boosts with that for any reason, he can deal 2 damage to any fighter on the board. And so because of this, we see a lot of really strong effects that he can get with these boosts, and he still has the flexibility to play the card in combat or as a scheme as well for the ones that are better played as the card itself instead of used for the boost. And so, with all that being said, the probably the most powerful boost trick in the deck is Set the Stage. The scheme is normally a best card that draws you cards, but you almost are never going to see it used for that effect, because the boost trick, when you use it, lets you look at your opponent's hand and choose a card for them to discard. And so discard effects always very powerful in this game, and targeted discard effects particularly powerful, because not only does it let you get hand info on your opponent, it also lets you ditch their worst card, whereas with something like in the previous game with Genie's Wishes, the opponent gets to choose the discard, so they can discard their worst cards in hand, but you get to choose with Set the Stage. This lets you combo with Houdini's kind of most signature card, which is the Big Reveal. It's a 2-value attack that lets you boost the card twice. So this is an all or nothing thing. If you boost it, you have to boost it with 2 cards, or you just don't boost it at all. And so and then the after combat lets you return one of those cards that you boosted with. So if you boost with cards that have boost tricks, you get to use those boost tricks as part of the boost, in addition to adding to your attack value. And then you get to return one of them and double dip on that effect later on in the game. And so Big Reveal can get up to a 9-value attack if you boost it with a 3-value boost and a 4-value boost. And then you can return one of those. Often you'll want to return the 4-value boost just so you can do another big attack later, whether with the other Big Reveal or one of your flourishes, which can also be boosted as attacks. And so yeah, there's a lot of good damage output there, because you can boost in with Set the Stage and then discard your opponent's best defense, especially if they have a feint. You can get rid of the feint so they can't feint your Big Reveal, and then you can hit them really hard over what they've got. And one of the things that I did not mention up until this point is that Houdini's ability, whenever he boosts his movement, instead of getting those extra spaces, he can instead place himself in any space. So he can basically teleport around the board wherever he wishes, and that always lets him catch up to the opponent, no matter where they are. And if he combines that with the boost tricks, you can do some really powerful things. And so we'll definitely see Ito wanting to do that as this game progresses. Kjet has Houdini, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we'll want to see Kjet take advantage of that. And one of the other cards here, Sleight of Hand, will actually let him line up his attacks perfectly into a fighter like Yanenga, who has no cancels herself. She doesn't have a feint or any other effect that lets her cancel her opponent's card effects. And so Sleight of Hand, a very powerful card against fighters with no cancels, because it's an immediate effect that lets you return it to your hand and swap in a different card of your choosing. And so Yen has quite a few different blocks that she wants to line up into what Houdini has. For example, she wants to line up things like Jaws of the Beast into Big Reveal, because it's her best value block. But if Houdini attacks with Sleight of Hand, he can swap in one of his small cards and basically make Yen waste that Jaws and then wait for the Big Reveal later. But if Yen blocks with something smaller, like Point Blank or even Shield Formation, then you can swap in that Big Reveal and get that big damage through when she's not blocking for as much. So Sleight of Hand, probably a card that we'll see quite a bit during this matchup. And at the end of the day, it's also a 3-value boost, so it can also be used to boost things like Big Reveal and some of Houdini's other cards for larger value attacks or defenses.
Yeah, Sleight of Hand is definitely going to be very annoying for Yananga to deal with, not being able to cancel that effect. And like you had mentioned with Set the Stage 2 and the Big Reveal, like those two cards in combination are just so deadly. Houdini's just another fighter who is just incredibly explosive and volatile, just like with the Genie. So, very fitting being in the same box set together. And I also think it's funny how you had mixed them up. The players. You said Ito is playing Houdini. I just think it's funny because I think that's kind of what he's famous for. Is we're used to seeing Ito, defy the odds with Houdini.
That's exactly what was going through my head. I'm like, oh well, it's obviously Ito, right?
Yeah.
We've just been tearing it up with him.
Exactly. But yeah, so we're gonna see Kjet on Houdini, and that puts Ito on Yananga. So let's go ahead and take a look at her deck. Now, Yananga is one of well, probably my #1 favorite fighter, and I call her the Big One because I think she is the best in the game, and part of the reason for that is I think she can handle just about any matchup as long as you play it well, and she can be played in a lot of different ways. You know, she can be played kind of combo-y and aggressive, or she can be played the long-term value game. So I just think she's really, really versatile. And taking a look at some of her key cards, we're going to see Rain of Arrows, which is a bonus attack card, which debuted in Battle of Legends Volume 2. And what the bonus attacks are is essentially 2 attacks in one. So the first part is the Rain of Arrows, just a 3-value attack, and then after combat you trigger the Volley, which is the second part of the attack, which is another 3-value attack. Now, neither of which really have any effect, it's just 2 threes combined in one. If the opponent feints this card, you will cancel that after combat, so the Volley will not trigger. But you can't cancel everything Yanenga has because she also has Surprise Volley, which is incredibly good. With immediately you can return a defeated archer to a space in the opposing fighter's zone, and if you do that, archer is now the attacker, and if you don't, you're going to gain an action. So the Yanenga player gets to choose whether or not you want to reborn an archer or gain an extra action for a combo turn. Now, in this matchup, I expect to see this card used to bring back the archers almost always, unless you find some kind of lethal opportunity, because you need all the health you can get against Houdini, especially when you can play the misdirection boost effects and just pop them, you know, without any worry. So you're going to need to be getting your archers back. And then Master of the Hunt is a scheme for Yanenga that just simply gains 2 actions. So very simple effect, but very powerful in the right situation because it essentially resets your turn. So you can either get a triple attack turn with it, or you can maneuver and then play Master of the Hunt to reset and still get a double attack turn even when you started out of the zone. And then one with the land is great healing. You get to move each of your fighters up to 2. Each of your fighters recovers a health, and you draw a card. So it's a maneuver plus 1 heal on each of your fighters, which doesn't seem like too much until you consider Yanenga's special ability, which lets her distribute damage dealt to her onto her archers as long as the archers are in the same zone. So they become an extension of Yanenga's health pool. She starts at 15 health, and each of the archers has 2 health instead of 1, so pretty unique for multi-sidekicks, and that lets them survive a lot better being at 2 health, and also it lets you distribute a little bit of damage onto them and then just gain it all back with 1 with the land, which essentially makes the card a 3 healing scheme. So that's just incredibly great value, especially against an aggro fighter like Houdini, who has these big damage bursts. And then lastly, Stallion Charge is one of the best versatiles in the game. I mean, it's after combat, you move Yanenga up to 5 spaces. She may move through opposing fighters, and then you get to deal 1 damage to each fighter she moved through. So it's like a hoax from Bigfoot's deck, but you also are dealing auto damage, which is great. It's kind of like a counter punch, but it's only half the damage, but it's both those things combined into one, and it's just an incredibly good card. And with 3 copies, it makes Yanenga really great on defense because you can use the movement to both deal the auto and get away from Houdini for any of his combo turns if he's trying to combo you with things like, you know, for my next trick and boost effects with action gains. So Yanenga, just super solid fighter, able to handle any matchup, but as we see or talked about earlier, she lacks any kind of cancels. That is her one weakness. And it can be a pretty big weakness, especially in a matchup like this, where Houdini can hit so hard and has something like Sleight of Hand to constantly bounce it back to his hand, and use it as essentially a defense check every single time, because as Zach mentioned, if Yanenga defends big, you just swap into something weak and you essentially got a great bait. Or if Yanenga defends small, then you're going to swap into the big reveal and you're just going to punish her for the low value block. So that is the one weakness, and it definitely comes into play in this matchup. And let's take a quick look at the map as well, being the Hanging Gardens. This is one of Yanenga's better maps, and it came in the Battle of Legends Volume 2 box that she debuted in. So, Connor, you want to give us the rundown, talk a little bit about Hanging Gardens and what makes this so special?
Yeah, so Hanging Gardens is a very special map for a few reasons. Not only is, as you mentioned, it great for Yanenga, but the high ground definitely can change how combos work. So you'll see all around the map there's a bunch of yellow +1s. And what that means is if you are on the sending end of a +1 and adjacent to the receiving end, then you'll get +1 to the value of an attack you are making. Typically what we'll see is when someone takes this map as their pure advantage, when they go first, or when they choose position and map, they will typically go in for an immediate high ground attack because it may be their only opportunity the entire game to get that high ground value. Because a smart player will attempt to evade getting hit by high ground at all costs. So this is definitely a great map for you. And again, not only because of the zone layout, allowing for ranged fighters to pretty easily scuffle around and get some very nice ranged attacks, but also because ranged double threes or high ground double threes with the high ground are double fours, which can be extraordinarily substantial if Houdini gets a bad hand, or if Houdini doesn't have the blocks he needs at the time. And Houdini in this matchup doesn't want to feint. He generally wants to boost to pop archers for 2 damage. So if Yanenga knows that and goes in for an immediate double attack, then Houdini can have a very rough time. And on the other hand, if Houdini does choose to feint with misdirection, then that means that there's an even higher probability that Yanenga's health pool is out of control and just cannot be toppled.
That's a great point you bring up, Connor, with the misdirection, and that card is so good used as a boost to kill off the archers really easily, but also, again, Yanenga has those red cards that you really want to cancel because they're so powerful. So Houdini's in a tough spot. He has to decide whether or not he wants to use those misdirections as cancels on defense, or if he wants to use them for the boost effects. So it's another interesting decision that makes this matchup so unique and fun. And as Zach mentioned earlier on the Hanging Gardens, there's a couple of spots if you look right in the center there, and then towards the top right corner, there's those 2 tri-zone spots where Yanenga can sit and force Houdini to come in on low ground, and then it might let her get some extra damage. So both of these fighters also have tools used to move the opponent. The archers can use Pin the Prey, Houdini can use Vanishing Act, so you can push your opponent onto the low ground, and so you can make a follow-up attack with extra damage. So it's going to be really interesting. I think both fighters can use this map well, and I can't wait to see what happens. But the players are ready, so let's jump into Vorpal board, and we will see what happens for Game 2. Now, I did see that Ito chose to keep and Kjet mulligan. So Kjet going second probably was not feeling very good about his defenses, especially with the high ground opportunity turn 1 here. And Ito keeping his hand means he probably has what he wants for a good start. So very curious if we're going to see maybe the archer go in for a high ground attack on Bess here. But Kjet smartly positioning Bess right above Houdini. Otherwise, Houdini risks a low ground attack turn 1 if Ito wanted to boost in. But looks like Ito's just going to take a good position here, build up his hand size, which I think is smart in this matchup because that's how you lose as Yanenga, is you get caught with suboptimal defenses, and Houdini goes for the big punish. So I think this is smart by Ito to just double maneuver.
Yeah, you make a great point, John. And another thing to note is with Yanenga's Jaws the Beast, the 3 value versatile that is +1 value for each zone the opposing fighter's in. If Houdini does not boost for misdirection to kill that archer on the pure green, it'll force Houdini to be attacking into Yanenga with whatever he's attacking with. Yanenga can block with a 6 value block. And if Houdini does go in, I would expect him to pop that archer on the pure green. But if he does that, or if he does or does not do that, but goes in for an attack, then he'll also be at low ground against Yanenga, which will put him at risk for one of those huge double attack turns.
Yeah, approaching Yanenga at a hand disadvantage is always a bit scary. So Kjet is just going to double maneuver himself, set himself up in a good position to have the kind of options he needs for whatever situation. And it looks like, well, Yanenga and her archers are ranged, so they'll be able to make an attack in a single maneuver.
Yeah, one of the really nice things about this map, as you guys mentioned, was the zone layout. Even though Yen is only a move 2 ranged fighter, she can spread her archers out, which benefits her with the Divide and Conquer card that the archer can use to block for a 4 value if not in Yen's zone. But also just allows her to always reach and be able to attack, even if she herself cannot reach the opponent. And archers still have some pretty potent attacks between Momentous Shift and Pin the Prey, of course, as well as potentially being able to use that Divide and Conquer on offense as well. do see a shift into the 2-value block there from Houdini. This is the card that was mentioned earlier, the one that lets him move the opposing fighter or himself, but it's the way that he can potentially get the opposing fighter on the low ground, but pulling the archer on the low ground there is not as nice as it would be to pull Yen out of the way. But he does shove the archer out of the way so that it's not as close to attack him on a follow-up.
So here we see Houdini going for one of those combo turns I talked about, because he boosted with And the Beautiful Best, so the boost effect on that gains you an action. So essentially it's like you started your turn adjacent to the opposing fighter, which then Ito plays the Stallion Charge defense. Again, like I mentioned, this is a key card in the matchup because it's going to let Ito get away from any follow-up attack that Kjet might want to make. And he is throwing the Sleight of Hand, so again, he gets to check the defense first, then make his decision afterwards. But there's probably not a lot of great options into Stallion Charge. I think probably if you have the big damage, you go for it now because Yananga is not in the archer's zones.
Yep.
And we are going to see the big reveal.
That is actually something there that the Vanishing Act did of note, is it got the archer out of Yen's zone that attacked Houdini, so Yen can't soak any of this onto the archer.
Wow, so we're going to see a 8 damage big reveal, boosting with the other big reveal, so you got to imagine that big reveal is getting taken back with the effect, which means Kjet is going to lose one of his 2 Sleight of Hands, which can actually make a big difference in the matchup, so hopefully he's got a second copy.
Yeah, the earlier that he can find the second copy, the better. However, depending on what he has, he can still potentially throw in bait attacks with things like Forman X Trick, which would gain him an action. And this is actually a bit of an awkward spot for Houdini in this case, because Houdini, if he just maneuvers and goes to either of the green spaces below him, he's going to be on low ground, which is not what he wants. But if he goes on the high ground, one space to the left of where he's currently standing, where Yen was just a moment ago, Yen can attack him from where she positions. So depending on what Houdini's defenses are, he might not want to let Yen have that double attack opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's just showing the strength of Yananga on this map. So he is going to boost, take the opportunity to use a misdirection. I like this play. It lets him get to a much better position and avoid that low ground, you know, that tough situation you just talked about. And you're also getting value at the same time, which is part of the thing that's so good about Houdini, right, is that you just have those options with your boosts, so it's not just a wasted card.
It would have been a bit unfortunate if Kjet had to boost there just to get out of the positioning that I was talking about, with something that doesn't give him any value or doesn't maybe give the type of effect he wants right now. But yeah, being able to take down an archer with that is definitely a nice consolation.
Yeah, very interesting that he chooses to end Bess adjacent there in both zones. Oh, and she's going to just be taken out with a rain of arrows. Wow.
Yeah, I guess just wanted to stop Yen from reaching Houdini with an archer.
Well, the archer still could have went to the high ground here.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So, very interesting.
Bess often used as a meat shield, but yeah, I'd be curious to know exactly why there's that positioning.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't need Bess in this matchup, but I guess maybe Kjet was just okay with soaking up, you know, some attacks. Probably didn't expect a double attack and maybe wanted to waste at least 2 of Ito's cards, but I think he must have been okay with sacrificing Bess there just to keep Houdini safe for another turn.
Yeah, the biggest thing you lose out on when Bess isn't around is being able to swap Houdini with Bess with Smoke and Mirrors and avoid an attack. Can actually be quite good into the double attack because even if Bess doesn't defend the second half, she's only taking 3, so makes it so you don't have to waste a bunch of defense cards blocking both halves for Houdini, and lets Bess soak up some of that offense.
Yep.
But yeah, we're not going to see that there. So in this game, the smoke and mirror is just going to be a 3-value block, which honestly isn't that bad against Yen.
Yeah, against
He doesn't
Yen,
have a ton of big values.
it's good enough. It gets the job done. There's only a couple cards that even get over a 3 value anyways. Yen
Yeah.
will pressure you down with like a flurry of attacks, not so much big attacks. Wow, we're going to see Houdini taking an undefended hit with a surprise volley here. I
Probably
wonder what his
expecting a
hand is
pin.
looking like.
I think he was expecting to pin the prey.
Good point, but it also could have been a momentous shift.
Yeah, I mean, it is really risky to take if shift is available, of course.
Although Houdini is very good at surviving, even if it gets close, he's got healing in his deck and whatnot, so maybe he's just trying to save everything for offensive pressure and sacrificing his defense. Now this is his opening right here. Only one archer in Yen's zone. You get rid of the skirmish, and you can smack over a point blank, and there's no other defenses, so if you can land something like a For My Next trick, or any sort of action gain, Yen can be in big, big trouble right here.
Yeah. All right, we're going to see the explosive, and we know big reveal is in hand because it was used to boost the other one. So yeah, I mean, that's going to potentially do a lot here.
Good thing for Ito, he's not on the low ground at this point.
Yeah, that is a slight saving grace here.
And another thing to know about Houdini's 4-value attack that allows his opponent to boost, and then for him to choose to boost, is that it looks like Yanenga's boost values in
There
hand
it
right now
is.
are actually pretty poor.
We could see a 9 right here.
Ooh.
This could be the end of the game, actually. If
It
there's
could
another
be.
action gain involved.
Yeah,
I
if
think
you have another beautiful
Yanenga's done.
then 'cause yeah, now Yen can't block. We know it's 2 archer cards and a 1 with the land. But Kjet probably gonna check and see if he has any confirmed lethal. If not, he's probably just gonna throw a big reveal and get as much damage in as possible. Because even if he just gets Yen down to 2, I guess she does have the 1 with the land that he knows about. So if he gets Yen down to like 1, if he can get the full 9, 1 with the land will not put her out of range of a
Misdirection. I love this play right here by Kjet. Throwing Illusion, saving the big reveal, because Illusion, if the opponent defends it as Yanenga, her boost values are so high that they can often just fully nullify this card. So taking this opportunity to get some pure damage with it, I think is just incredibly good.
Yeah.
Landing a 6 damage attack, keeping up the card draw. Yen pushing 1 damage onto the archer so it can heal back with 1 with the land. But again, look at the card advantage, the hand advantage for Houdini here. Yen is on the run, and that's great positioning there, being able to sandwich in between the archers. But if Kjet has another misdirection, it could be lethal.
Yeah, both Houdini and Genie can definitely have these turns where they seem to be at a disparity and then suddenly make a
There it is.
huge comeback.
And takes out the archer who's in Yen's zone, so now Yen cannot soak any of this damage as well. And unless she found a really good defense as part of those 2 draws she got.
Yeah, if Kjet has the 9, right, the potential 9 with that scheme, Yen has to have either one of the, actually the last skirmish or one of the jaws.
Yep.
Shield
Only
formation.
Okay, not going to be the big reveal. Shield formation, a really good card against big reveal when you're not within lethal range like Yen is right now. But when you're not within lethal range, you have to do the double boost with big reveal, and you also have to decide on the shield formation discard before boosting on big reveal. And so, depending on how many cards Houdini has in hand at the time, it could put him in a really awkward spot if you're forcing him to discard since he's already double boosting.
I like this by Kjet, still just keeping up that hand advantage, getting his damage in, so it's making it closer and closer to that confirmed lethal with the big reveal. Ito is running for his life. He obviously played the best defense that he happened to draw into, and I think now he's going to have to position to force a big Jaws defense at this point. Although, from where he's at now, unless he boosts, it's not going to be ideal because he doesn't want to put himself on low ground.
Yeah, if he if he boosts up and goes onto the top high ground spot, that tri-zone with the two green, the dark green, light green, and gray, and then puts the archer over on the dark green to the right, that does mean the only open spot is a tri-zone.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that looks like
Yep.
exactly where it's moving. Yep. And now, unless Kiet has the last misdirection, because there's still one, I believe. Yeah, unless Kiet has the last misdirection, Jaws is a really good block right now.
Definitely.
And he can still reach with a boost, of course, being able to teleport anywhere he wishes. But if Jaws was drawn into, and even if you don't have Jaws, like this is still like you want to represent potentially having it, making it difficult for Houdini. Because if he doesn't have to set the stage, he can't confirm. So if you do have Jaws and he full blocks, you're in a really vulnerable spot on that low ground with only 5 health left. So gonna see Kiet just play play it safe, go for the long game because if he is able to find the last couple tools he needs, Yen is going to have a really hard time dealing with it. So no reason to rush if you're Houdini here.
Wow, very
Houdini-
quick double maneuver turn by Ito.
Yeah,
Houdini still has a lot of healing as well, so Houdini can just essentially camp at the other side of the map, heal, and then finally decide to pop that archer and go in for the final big reveal. This is looking pretty bad for Yanenga.
that's exactly what we're seeing here with a all part of the show used to boost because he was going to overdraw anyway. Lets him reposition wherever he wishes, and also get that 2 healing, which will put him in a little bit safer of a range.
Yeah, that's the thing is Houdini can just wait it out. I mean, he has a 9 value attack over Yanenga's essentially 6 health here. But if you pop a misdirection, then you just have lethal.
Yeah.
As long as you're not giving her more than a, what? As long as you're not giving her a 6 value Jaws defense, which looks like you can always avoid. If there's not, if there's no sidekicks, then Houdini will have the lethal.
What do we see here? Okay, a couple of Jaws were drawn into. Jaws of 5 right now, which means it's not going to be enough if you attack with big reveals at 9 into Jaws, because if the Archer wasn't there, it would be enough, but
Right.
the Archer being able to soak too. What would you be looking to do here as Ito, John, if you were in his spot as Yen? How does Yen get out of this predicament, essentially?
Well, step one, you got to survive, right? You got to survive the coming turn, and what you really need to do is find your surprise volleys, because you need to, if Houdini wants to sit back and wait and find lethal, right, you need to be the one as Yanenga to make the first attack and threaten that surprise volley. And honestly, you want it to be the surprise volley so it's not a bait, it's the real deal. And Kjet is then put into a tough spot of, well, do I want to defend with my misdirection, which then essentially you're losing 2 damage? It's an even trade then, right? And if you don't use your misdirection, then Yanenga is increasing her health pool, which is really what she needs at this point. So with Houdini being at 7 health and still having healing available and plenty of defenses and even combo breaker defenses at that, I don't think there's any way Yanenga is closing this out with aggression. You just need to squeeze every ounce of your health pool out and survive the best you can. And you are ahead in the deck by quite a bit at 12 cards to Houdini's 8 right now. So you still have quite a bit more health. You have another 1 with the land and I believe 2 surprise volleys. So you could potentially survive. You just got to survive that last big reveal mainly and misdirection. And then you might be able to close this one out in fatigue.
And we see Kjet not wanting to risk going in there. One of the plays that I was considering was you could potentially do something like if you either have sleight of hand or for my next trick, you can maybe get in there, force out one of Yen's good defenses, and then back off. But oh my goodness,
Wow.
we're just gonna see a double master of the hunt turn.
So he
from
top
Yen.
decked into both of those with these maneuvers.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we
that's
just saw
true,
his
'cause
hand.
We saw they weren't in there. It's kind of amazing. Yen's like, you're not the only one that can gain actions, Houdini.
Not giving him too much, though. I think he's just
Yeah.
digging at this point. Like I said, digging for
Yeah.
those surprise volleys. You've got to increase your health pool.
It's definitely not the way that you'd prefer to use them. Essentially just being used as extra maneuvers here. Because Yen notably doesn't have any draw effects. So she can only draw cards for maneuvering. Unless the opponent has something that lets her draw something, like Houdini's wishing for more wishes, for example. But in her own kit, the only way she can get more than a couple draws a turn is if she does a Master of the Hunt like that to just maneuver extra times.
Right.
And that's not the ideal way to use the card, of course. You'd rather use it for the big combos, but if you're just trying to survive, you know.
Got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
And I'll maneuver again.
Connor, do you think this is kind of standard Houdini play where he kind of goes down pretty low in health at the start and then he just turns it around out of nowhere?
I mean, Houdini has pretty low value blocks. He is essentially only 2s and 3s. So Houdini is definitely going to be taking a lot of damage, especially against Yananga in the early game. And even with that in mind, Houdini has so much potential healing to claw himself back up from that point. And I think so. Yeah, to answer your question, John, I do think this is pretty standard Houdini play. He takes a bunch of damage, and then he burns a bunch of gas, and then he sees where he's at. And it looks like after burning a bunch of gas, he's at a pretty good place. He essentially just needs to draw that misdirection, pop the archer, and go for a big hit. So I think this is a pretty good taste of what playing as Houdini is like.
Yep. I would agree. This is pretty textbook right here. And now both players, it's a very passive game at this point because they know that they can't go in at the wrong time or else they could lose them the game. Because Ito, if he goes in and it's not the surprise volley, he's just opening himself up. And Kjet is just not wanting, he knows he has a confirmed lethal in his deck. If you can get the misdirection, the big reveal, and then a 3 boost and the 4 boost, right, to make it a 9, he knows for sure he can lethal Yananga as long as he can find that before Ito finds his surprise volley. So it's kind of just a stare down at this point, and we're going to see who finds their win condition first. And Ito, the tough part is, even if he finds the surprise volley, I don't know that it's a win condition, but it's going to prevent Kjet's current win condition with that confirmed lethal, so he really needs to find that ASAP.
Yeah, one of the things we see there on that turn from Kjet is actually boosting with the sleight of hand just to draw another card deeper.
Yeah, so he knows. He's just digging for that lethal. And
Yep.
if Yananga can find that surprise volley first and Kjet loses that lethal confirm, then he might find himself regretting those extra card draws.
Yeah. He isn't having to worry about the Master of the Hunt combo turns necessarily, since that was just used for extra draws. But yeah, if Houdini doesn't have that guarantee, it's going to make things a bit scarier, especially considering he's almost out of cards in deck, so he will start taking exhaustion damage not too long from now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point, Zach. Fatigue is definitely a big problem with Houdini, especially when he goes for this kind of textbook tactic of camping and waiting for the perfect hand. Because he's going to be overdrawing so much, and even if he is boosted to get value, he is going to be just turboing through his deck. And Yananga can be very tanky towards the late game, especially when she's up in cards. And also on a brief side note, thank you to Restoration Games for the 20 subs.
Wow, thank you so much, Restoration Games.
Yeah, huge.
Obviously, they are the official sponsor of the tournaments we run here, so none of this would be possible without them. And of course, 645 Development is the guy who makes this all possible with the fancy stream layouts and everything. So, of course, big thanks to him as always.
Oh yeah.
Now we're seeing Houdini just go in for a standard attack, no boost. What do you make of this, Connor? Do you think this is like some kind of action gain to just maybe bait something out, or is he just going for a little bit of chip damage?
I mean, Kjet knows ETOCUD is a very insightful player, especially when it comes to defending. So I'm suspecting he's going to try baiting out that Jaws the Beast. And I think ETOCUD sensed that and then did not go for the Jaws the Beast.
Skirmish gonna avoid any potential follow-up.
Yeah, and it does still keep Yan alive, even if the big reveal does happen there. So, a calculated risk from Ito, but still a fairly safe play.
Now Kjet, next turn though, he will have... Ooh, there it is.
Okay, interesting.
Oh, wow. If he goes to green, not that... Oh, Yen could still reach him there. If he goes somewhere where Yen can't reach in 5 move, then he can avoid that potential surprise volley and essentially confirm his lethal on the next turn because he'll draw into his last card and go for the lethal, seeing as he already found the misdirection. So I think that position right there could be a big mistake if he ends there, because then Yen can still hit.
That he can be outside of 5, because Yen can always go up to that tri-zone up top, which is within 5.
Oh, you're right. That is 5. Yep. I was counting the path along the bottom, but yeah, you're right. So we're going to see. I mean, even if Ito does have the surprise volley, it's, well...
Yeah, he has to do the surprise volley, otherwise he's just dead, but...
Yep. Put the archer on the pure green, and then Houdini either attacks the archer instead of Yanenga or goes in the tri-zone and then Jaws.
The problem with surprise volley is that, oh wow, Kjet doesn't have any more vanishing axe. I was going to say you could have defended with that, pushed the archer out of Yanenga's zone so it's not an extension of the health.
Yeah,
but he
that was
may
one of
have
the discarded to overdraw, so I think he's probably wishing he had that right about
Yeah,
now.
that's a big deal. Oh, that's massive right there. If this was the Vanishing Act, this game would be over. But now Yanenga has an opportunity to bring this back and win it in fatigue. I think it's a scary situation for Kjet.
And a fun fact that the archer does come back immediately, so Houdini can't snipe that spot next to Yen even if he wanted to. Not that it would necessarily matter, because the archer, just as long as the archer would be in dark green somewhere, that would be all that's necessary for it to soak, which is what she needs.
Honestly, on the previous turn, I would have liked to see Houdini end on this low ground space where the archer is currently, because then Yen would have to end adjacent to Houdini in order to make an attack. And I think Houdini had the health that he could afford to be on the low ground there for a one attack. It wouldn't really be the end of the world, and it would have given him probably a better position, seeing as he could double attack from the single zone space instead of this tri-zone.
Good point.
Yeah, and a problem that Houdini can have, similar to King Arthur, the OG from Battle Legends 1, is that Houdini has to spend multiple cards just to get one good attack or one good block. So what I was going to say there was that because it's only 1 damage and Houdini chose to boost, he is going to be losing out on card value, especially later in the game. If Yanenga tries killing him, he'll have fewer blocks to be preventing anything like double attacks. So Houdini spending so many cards, not just maneuvering and boosting, but also just blocking and attacking just to get solid blocks and defenses, is definitely going to make it so that he is very, very limited fuel as he's about to hit fatigue. It looks like he's actually reconsidering the decision to boost, knowing that he's going to need that value later in the game.
Yeah, I think he needs to kill off the archer with an attack on this upcoming turn, and that way he still has potential lethal on the following turn. But he is just running out of ammunition, because the archers can still defend with Momentous Shift, and that's a 3 value, which means Houdini has to boost over it in order to clear it out. So I'd like to see probably a flourish into the archer here and hope that Ito doesn't find his last surprise volley, and then the following turn Houdini can maneuver in fatigue and go for that lethal hit with the big reveal.
Do we know how many Jaws the Beast remain?
2.
2 of them still.
2? So if Ito double Jaws and the archer's not dead, then things get really nasty for Houdini.
Although Houdini can throw a 9 and then a follow-up, what, like 7? So he could close this out still because he boosted with the action gain here, so he gets 2 actions. And you can't defend with a Stallion here as Yanenga because the big reveal is lethal. You have to throw the Jaws, and then after that, I think Kjet still has a lethal because we know everything in hand. So Kjet should still have this game just barely.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, if this big reveal goes to a 9, which it does, you can't block with anything other than the Jaws, because you won't survive. And then yeah, the 7 after that.
You deal
'Cause let's
3
see.
over the 6, and then you deal a 7 over the 6. Yeah.
Yeah, so even both jaws doesn't do enough because you return the 4 value boost with the big reveal.
Just barely. I think Kiet's realizing he's got it. He's just gonna.
Yeah, there's
I think
no
Ito too.
question
He's
because,
smirking. He knows.
Yeah,
He's just hoping that Kiet maybe doesn't see it.
yeah.
So there's the
So
9.
the archer has to take 2 and goes down to. I guess the archer doesn't have to die here, but yeah, it doesn't change anything. Yep, so Yen goes down
1,
to
2, 3.
Pretty crazy being able to get
Wait
so
a
much
minute.
damage
So
over
this
the
is not
6 value
lethal,
stuff.
actually, because I forgot about the
Yeah,
archer.
you can boost it.
Because the 6 plus Yen wasn't actually
yeah,
at
you're
4
right.
health.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
was
yeah.
at 6 health because of the
Right.
archer.
Right. So he has
Ooh.
to have. So if Ito doesn't have the other jaws here, it's good enough. But if he has the jaws, then it actually is not.
Right. Does he have the last jaws? I can't remember what we saw in his hand when the set the stage came out. Nope.
He doesn't
No
have
jaws. That'll be it. Ditch for the
it.
shield.
Oh, and
Boost for
Houdini
the
has
7.
1 card left and just gets there.
Wow.
Dang. Yeah. I wasn't calculating the archer either. For the because the 6 value jaws is so much block, obviously.
Yeah. Wow. Let's listen in on the players for a second.
Let me see. Oh my god. It was a big reveal, it was a flourish.
Yeah, you got everything there. Yeah, I was digging for the volley, and I was bottom. I got one pretty decently, but the other 2 were in the bottom 9. I was like,
So this was my opening hand.
wow.
After the mulligan, because before the mulligan I had 4 red cards on the scheme. So I won a mulligan, you can maybe attack. So then I started with this. Then firstly I drew this.
Wow.
And then eventually I drew this. And then I think the turn after I got the misdirection, but yeah, I wanted to use that. I think card 17 was my next defense after this. Yeah, 17 in deck.
I just need to find one more jaws or one more volley earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that was a close game. I think honestly that again was just textbook Houdini versus Yananga right there. And I always personally, I'm a big fan of that matchup. I love to watch that one because of how close it can be. And even though it was looking pretty bad for Houdini at the start, then it was looking really good, and then it was looking bad again, and it goes back and forth so much. I think it's such a fun one to watch. So. Connor, it looks like Kjet was at least, unfazed enough to pull out the win in the second game. So how do you think he's going to be feeling going into the third game here?
I know Kjet's probably disappointed about his Genie loss, but now that he's won on his opponent's advantage, now that both players have won on their opponent's advantage, I think in terms of psychological warfare, it's an even playing field. And now with Bigfoot Moonlight being somewhat even, I think both players are just going to be locked in and ready to go.
Yeah, I agree. And Zach, we've seen this matchup before in some of your streams throughout the bracket. Most notably, I can remember the one of Chad, where Chad's Moon Knight faced off against Bigfoot, and that game was incredibly close. And I mean, what do you expect to see in this upcoming game here?
I mean, I expect to see kind of what we've been seeing from the first 2 is that just really close back and forth gameplay. Both players obviously know what they're doing, and being able to like win the little interactions is going to be key in this one, especially on split advantage. Neither fighter going to necessarily have too much of a leg up, and so it's really going to be trying to win those combat interactions and make sure that you get, for Moon Knight, you want favorable attacks into the cancels from Bigfoot, where you're just getting like big values over the cancels and not getting any of your good effects stopped. And then Bigfoot is going to want to try to value block those big attacks and cancel the more detrimental effects to him. And keeping Jack alive for Bigfoot will be a big deal, of course, as usual.
Right, that's always one of the most important aspects of any Bigfoot matchup is how long can Jackalope stay alive? How well can Bigfoot defend him and hide him? And when does Bigfoot make the decision to either give it up and let Jack go, even if you haven't pulled off all the horns, or, you know, you just decide to use him as a body blocker? And those decisions are really tough, especially going into Moon Knight, just because of Khonshu being able to hit so hard. But taking a look at this advantage as well, I mean, Ito was the one who picked this map, and that's going to let Bigfoot start first, but we don't see a whole lot of Sunnydale High. So, Connor, do you have any idea, any thoughts on maybe why Ito would pick a map like this?
Well, the Buffy set is very infamous for its fighters, but the maps are actually quite popular in the community as relatively balanced maps for a lot of matchups. ETOCUD might actually be thinking that because of the starting positions and Bigfoot being unable to get an early attack unless he really goes to town, then ETOCUD might just be going to simply outplay Bigfoot. He's gonna assume Bigfoot wants to go first, and he's gonna know he's pretty safe from an immediate attack unless Bigfoot wants to go in boosting, which is pretty scary to do into Moon Knight, who's then gonna become Khonshu. So I think ETOCUD might just be going for the out experience. He practices a lot on the Restoration Games Discord server, so he might be thinking, well, even map, I'm pretty safe turn 1 from the position pick, and I think I can just outplay him in this matchup.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really interesting because, like you said, even map, right? And Sunnydale is one of the most neutral maps in the game, I would say. And this fighter matchup is also very even. So it really is just going to come down to, you know, who makes the least amount of misplays and who can make the best of their card draw that they are given. So I feel like I couldn't ask for a better matchup and whatnot for the deciding game of this match. So before we get into it, let's take a quick look at the decks here. We will start off with one of my personal favorites as well, Bigfoot. He's probably my number 2 after Yanenga, but Connor, why don't you walk us by Bigfoot?
Oh, it would be my absolute pleasure, John. So, Bigfoot, the OG member of the Big Three, is simply a very strong character. He's a 16 health, move 3 fighter with his pesky sidekick, the Jackalope, who is one of the most infamous and menacing sidekicks in the whole nebula. So we see Bigfoot's classic card, Larger Than Life, a blank 6-value attack, which is commonly referred to as the log. We also see Bigfoot's kind of secondary attack, the 4-value attack Savagery, which means after combat, if he wins it, he can do an extra damage to each fighter adjacent, which means he can actually ping the Jackalope if the Jackalope happens to be next to him. We do see Jackalope horns, the reason the Jackalope is so infamous, allowing the Jackalope to move 5 spaces through hostiles and then finally do 2 damage to a fighter adjacent to him after that movement, meaning the Jackalope can in total do up to 6 auto damage. So it's going to be in its best interest to get rid of the pesky Jackalope before he can scuffle around and pop those schemes. We also see that Bigfoot has 2 copies of It's Just Your Imagination, the 3-value defense that immediately cancels all effects. So because he has 2 copies of this and 3 feints, he total has 5 effects cancellations, allowing him to effectively prevent his opponent from getting a lot of their effects in. However, in this matchup, that might not be as good as it always is, because Khonshu is not going for effects, he's going for card value. And finally, he has Hoax, the 4-value versatile, which allows him to move 5 spaces through hostiles. And Hoax is not the only great defense he has. He's a few other ones, which can definitely make him very hard to get damage on. But Khonshu is a specialist at dealing that damage.
Yeah, that's a great point. Bigfoot, I mean, he just wants to walk in, smack you with a log, and walk out, right? And it is a lot harder to use things like the Jackalope horns in this matchup with Khonshu not taking effect damage, and your cancels like Just Your Imagination are just not nearly as effective. So Moon Knight definitely has the tools to deal with this. But let's go ahead and take a look at Moon Knight and see what we've been talking about here. So, Zach, do you want to talk about Moon Knight a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So Moon Knight, probably my favorite out of the current Marvel fighters in the game. I think that's probably going to change once Teen Spirit starts hitting shelves. I know that my copy's on the way, so super excited for that. But Moon Knight, probably one of the most interesting designs as far as the Marvel characters, in my opinion, because you get the form changes. So you do have some parallels there to someone like Alice in particular, but the way that Moon Knight does it is much different. So even though there's similar mechanics, it feels a lot different in how it plays out. And so, yeah, Moon Knight's ability is that at the end of your turn, you switch to your next form, and Moon Knight has 3 forms. He has Moon Knight, which lets him move up to 2 spaces at the start of his turn. This is often referred to as a bunny hop by the community. And so it helps with positioning because it means you can move up to 5 spaces with just a single maneuver using that free 2 movement at the start. Also, if you're within 2 of an opponent, you can potentially double attack them, which is quite nice. And then your most powerful form, which is usually the one people play around the most, is Khonshu. And when you're Khonshu, you get +2 to your attack values, and as alluded to earlier, you cannot take non-combat damage. So you still take damage from combat, but anything outside of combat, whether that be effects from cards or abilities, or even exhaustion damage, you do not take as Khonshu. And so that gives you a lot of strength into a lot of cards or abilities that other fighters have. In this one, Jackalope Horns will be the card that's most relevant against, but it could also potentially matter with Savagery and stuff like that. And then your final form is Mr. Knight, and when you're Mr. Knight, you get +1 to your defense values. And so you switch between these forms every turn, and so there's kind of like a natural flow with Moon Knight that you get into where you have the turn where you can maneuver and position a bit better, and then you have the turn where you can hit really hard, and then you have the turn where you kind of after that big attack you can be a bit more defensive, and so it makes it harder for your opponent to counterpunch you after you go in for those big Khonshu turns. And so with all that being said, when evaluating Moon Knight's cards, you have to keep those bonuses in mind, because any card that is an attack or a versatile could be up to 2 value higher, which matters for stuff like Fist of Khonshu, as we see here, where you get to move the opposing fighter up to 4 spaces if you won the combat. A 3, pretty hard to win on offense, and not too likely to win on defense either. However, a 5 on offense is much more likely to get that effect off. So both Fist of Khonshu, letting you reposition your opponent and even push them away so they can't counterattack you, or the that's the part I like, which is the one that lets you look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck and discard 1 and reorder the other 2. Both of those effects a lot more likely to trigger if you attack with the card as Khonshu. Similarly, if you're blocking with those cards as Mr. Knight, they're a 4 value on defense, which is a lot better and more likely to win than when they're just their 3 value. Another couple cards we see here are these 4 value cards here, both Good Enough for Us and I'm Not Real. I'm Not Real, the only way in the deck for Moon Knight to cycle into those different forms outside of the normal end of turn switch that he does. And so you could do some fun things with this. One of the ways that you can use it is to attack with it when you're Moon Knight, if you're able to like move in, either already be adjacent with Moon Knight or move in with a bunny hop and then attack with I'm Not Real, which lets you immediately switch to Khonshu if your effect is not canceled, and then attack as Khonshu on a turn that your opponent is maybe not expecting it, so they might not be prepared with positioning or their defenses. And then the more common way that it's often used is just to cycle to a Khonshu turn earlier, so you can attack with it as your second action as Khonshu, or you can even attack with it as Mr. Knight. And in either of those circumstances, you're going to get to your next Khonshu turn sooner than you would otherwise, which, again, if you can pressure your opponent and force them into having inoptimal positioning or defenses on your Khonshu turns, you're going to be able to take advantage of that. And even if it does get canceled, it's a big value attack. So if you're attacking with the 4 as Khonshu, you can maybe even use it if you expect your opponent to feint to stop one of your nasty effects like Fist of Khonshu or That's the Part I Like. And if they feint it, then they're taking 4 damage over the feint, since I'm Not Real will be a 6 when you're Khonshu. And you don't really mind missing out on the form switch in that regard because you're just getting a lot of damage through. And then the last 2 cards we see here are Let Your Insanity Guide You, which is a very interesting card, one that you don't often see played for the actual effect, because it discards the top card of your deck and then draws you cards equal to that card's boost value. Moon Knight can play a really good exhaustion game, and so he often isn't wanting to unnecessarily draw cards, especially since Insanity isn't going to be doing much damage either. Even if you're Khonshu, it's only a 3 value attack, and it's pretty bad on defense. Even if you're Mr. Knight, it's only a 2 value block, and there's way better things you can block with. So often you're going to see it used as the 2 value boost, either to move further or to boost one of your That's Why I Always Wins. since the only 3-value boost you have in the deck are the schemes, and you generally want to play those instead of using them as boost fodder. And so, that being said, Insanity can be used to bait an attack into a feint. And so we might actually see that come up in this match because Bigfoot has 5 cancels as opposed to the normal 3 that most fighters have. And so if Moon Knight's willing to risk it drawing cards, then we might see it try to go into a cancel. Or be used in the spot where he doesn't mind to draw, maybe to keep hand advantage on Bigfoot, etc. And then the last card I'll go over here on the deck highlight is just the scheme here, one of the 2 schemes in the deck. As I mentioned, only 3 value boosts in the deck are the 4 schemes, and so this can be relevant for a combat card that we'll see, I'm sure, as the match progresses. But Madness Will Keep You Alive is what is often referred to in the community as a pass. This is essentially a scheme that you can play that does not draw you any cards and does not gain you any actions. And so when considering exhaustion purposes, it lets you take an action where you're not getting deeper into your deck without being forced to go in and attack your opponent. And so Madness is actually, it's a pass if you do not, if you play it when you haven't left your starting space for the turn, but it can also just be a heal too, and still be able to do more in your turn if you need that healing to stay out of lethal ranges and still want to attack on like a Khonshu turn, or set up your past and present, which cares about the boost value of the top card in your discard pile. And so a very flexible card that can either be used as a pass or for tempo when you need it to get healing, as well as gain that action, so you're not falling behind if you need to catch up on card advantage or put pressure on your opponent in other ways. So yeah, Moon Knight, very flexible character, very interesting to see how the forms work with each other and flow together, and how both you and your opponent have to play around that. So definitely a really consistent character, and one that we've seen a lot this tourney, just because he's very well rounded, and you can do a lot of strong things as long as you know what you're doing.
Yeah, very well said, Zach. I think, like you said, he's very well rounded, and he's just got a lot of things going for him in the matchup. But it looks like Deadpool or something might have snuck in here and let your Insanity guide you on the key cards list, because that is definitely not a key card in the matchup. So let's go ahead and take a look at, let's bring up Travelers of the Night instead. Let's see a real key card here. So, so Travelers of the Night, this scheme is going to let you move your fighter up to 4 spaces, and you can move through opposing fighters and gain an action. So another one of those valued 3 boosts, but even more so than that, it's going to let you move through Bigfoot and get to the Jackalope even when Bigfoot is trying to body block for him, and get rid of that pesky little Jackalope pretty quickly. And it does allow you to get double attack turns with Khonshu as long as they don't play something like a Hoax, because any other defense won't get them away. Because if it's a skirmish, you're not going to win combat against Khonshu, right? Not if he doesn't want you to. And if it's your cancels, obviously that doesn't give any movement. So you go Travelers, first action, you move over through Bigfoot up to the Jackalope, you smack him really hard, you deal, probably at least 2 or 3, probably 3 damage, which is half of Jack's health. And if he didn't play the Hoax specifically, you can just make another follow-up attack right away and kill him off really quickly. So that's going to be a huge game changer right there if we can see Moon Knight use Travelers to get through and kill off the Jackalope. So let's go ahead and take a quick look, too, at the map. I know, Zach, you're a big fan of the Buffy set, so did you have some words to talk about Sunnydale High here?
Yeah, there's actually a spot in particular that I want to call out on this map, and is maybe one of the reasons that it was chosen by the Moon Knight side. There's a lot of maps that this can be the case, but this one, I think, it gives you a few extra options, and isn't as good for Bigfoot as maybe some of the other maps are. And so the spot that I want to call out in particular is the solo blue spot in the middle of the map there. If Moon Knight is standing there, I believe there is only one spot on the map that is more than 4 spaces away, which is the top right purple in the corner of the library there. the spot that's basically wedged between those two windows, that's the only spot that is not within 4 of that solo blue space. And so travelers will allow Moon Knight on a Khonshu turn to reach no matter where Bigfoot is hiding. And even though one fighter could stand in that spot that's 5 away, both of the fighters won't be able to. So Khonshu will either be able to double attack Jack or Bigfoot, depending on which of them is not standing in that safe spot. And then further than that, it's just within 4 or 5 of every space, meaning that a single maneuver boosted or a Moon Knight bunny hop plus a maneuver will get you to anywhere that you need to be. And so Bigfoot will not be able to necessarily hide on those Khonshu turns like you could on some maps as long as Moon Knight positions properly.
Now, with that said, Zach, that's a great point about that center stage space, the blue space right there. Do you think turn 1 we might see Bigfoot maybe position Jackalope to the right of that starting spot, move up to Moon Knight, make an attack, meanwhile have Bigfoot stand on that solo blue so that you're blocking the center stage that Moon Knight would want to take on a first turn double maneuver?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worthwhile to try to cut off those valuable spots, especially if you force Moon Knight to use those Khonshu turns against Bigfoot early on, so Jack can stay around longer and get his value. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we see from positioning from Kjet, just making sure that that center space is not extra value for Ito. And the other thing is the zone cutoffs in this map are actually quite good for Bigfoot for ability purposes, because you can draw as Bigfoot if you end the turn in a zone that is not shared by any opposing fighters. However, I don't know if we'll see Bigfoot want to draw too much in this matchup, because Moon Knight can play a really good exhaustion game, as Bigfoot can as well. And any extra draws that you take with ability can be quite detrimental in the long game if the Moon Knight player plays for exhaustion, which is usually something that is very possible to do, particularly with Khonshu not taking exhaustion damage, so you get a bit of an extra timer than you normally would compared to most fighters. So,
Right.
yeah, I think controlling the center of the map will be the key, and so we'll see how each player approaches that and whether or not Ito can pressure Bigfoot enough where Kiet doesn't feel safe controlling that center spot and then allowing Ito to get those ideal traveler turns like he wants.
Right, and to piggyback off that, what you said about pressuring him enough, right? I personally, when I play this matchup, as Bigfoot, I like to use my ability almost as often as I can, because if you can pressure and just force Moon Knight to not want to come in, then you're in a good spot. So I think Moon Knight is probably favored in fatigue in general, so with that being the case, why not just play aggro, right? Play into your ability with Bigfoot and put the pressure on him, try to keep hand advantage, and kind of try to negate those Khonshu turns inherently just by the way you're playing. So I don't know. It's going to be really
this
interesting.
Is why you're the Bigfoot master, and I have a very poor record with him in competitive. He's just one of those fighters he's very straightforward, but there's a lot of nuances to his play. He just kind of looks like a stat stick on the surface with the big values both on offense and defense. But there's a lot of little things you have to worry about that changes based on matchup. So yeah, I think a really good point to make there.
Yeah, Bigfoot, he seems simple, but it's the optional ability. It really is a lot to think about and a lot to consider, and can make a big difference in your game's outcomes with him. So I just love this map and this matchup. Both fighters have so much going for them. It really is just one of the most even things I think we could hope to see for a Game 3. So the players are ready in Vorpal. Let's head on over there and see who is going to be the first semifinal champion here. So unsurprisingly, Bigfoot starting first, but doesn't look like he wants to put Jackalope out in danger quite yet.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out that I did call out the solo blue space, but it actually, I think, is the case as well that the green blue space right above it is actually within 4 of everywhere, including that back purple corner. So those two spots, maybe the green blue being even better than the solo blue one.
True, the green-blue is pure center. The blue is close, and the green is close right underneath that, but the actual dual zone there is the center stage. Now we see a first action crashing to move right up to Moon Knight, get in a log while you can, while he doesn't have the defense buff, but Ito did have the 4-value block, which is best case right here, because another great block is past and present intermingle, but that plays off of the top card of your discard pile and its boost value. So with no cards being in the discard pile, on the start of the game, that card is not a good defense at all. So there's only a couple of options that really save you, and luckily for Ito, he had the one he needed at the start here.
Yep, I like going into the log because most of the time you're going to be getting 3 damage there instead of 2. Potentially more depending on what the hand looks like for Moon Knight, but yeah, the best block there for Ito, and also being able to take this green-blue spot that we were just mentioning forces the travelers. There's nowhere that you can hide. There's not even really. I think there might be a way. Actually, yeah, I was gonna say there might be a way to block off. I think there is actually a way to.
You got a body block.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, you can body block if Bigfoot was in. So if Jack was in the top right purple, that one by the windows, like I noted, and then Bigfoot was one to the left on that one there. From this spot, travelers would not be able to move through Bigfoot, and would not quite be able to reach that back corner spot, either going the way from below or from above. So that would be the one way to stop travelers from reaching from this green-blue zone. But that's the only way. And considering Jack was all the way on the other side of the map, probably not going to see that being possible here. Could have potentially maybe done a boosted play, but probably doesn't want to be wasting cards right now unnecessarily.
Yeah, this is looking really scary for the Jackalope because Moon Knight's about to have a Khonshu turn, and the Jackalope is within maneuvering range. And even if the Jackalope tries scuffling with us on like a skirmish, then Moon Knight can have the potential of just Travelersing in and then going in for a nice double attack. So the Jackalope is in a very hot water right now, especially because he has not played any of his pesky Jackalope horns.
Yeah, great point, Connor. I think you need to pull off at least a couple of the Jackalope horns before he dies off. Otherwise, Moon Knight is just so tanky with his actual defense values that you really need that auto damage early.
We see Kjet not opting to draw. Could have with Bigfoot at the end of that turn, but decides not to. And then, alright. It's going to be an I'm Not Real doing 2 damage over the skirmish, so the skirmish does not get to move Jack away. And I assume we'll probably see the cycle here into Mr. Knight, which will mean at the end of the turn he'll cycle to Moon Knight, meaning that very close to another Khonshu turn and putting that pressure on Bigfoot to be worried depending on what his defenses look like.
Yeah, that is exactly what we see, and I do think that was best case scenario for Kjet there with the skirmish, because since Ito didn't open with the Travelers, Jack wasn't worried about a follow-up attack, so just value blocking there, saving a potential hoax for later for when he does use a Traveler's turn is very good outcome for Kjet.
Yeah. Another thing to note is ended within range of a maneuver. So even if Travelers is available, Ito might have just chosen not to use it, saving it for a turn where he can't reach with just a normal maneuver.
We see an offensive skirmish into a past and present, so no damage there. Even though it is Moon Knight, it looks like Kjet wanted to take advantage of that Moon Knight form to get a little bit of damage, hopefully, but Ito just full value blocking. But knocking out a past and present on something that's not a log feels pretty good.
Yeah.
I do love that center space, though, for Moon Knight on this map. That is actually really powerful because you can reach even most spaces on the map with a single maneuver, even without Travelers. So very, very good map for Moon Knight here.
But it's one of those things that definitely could shift into Bigfoot's favor with crashing into the trees, Jackalope horns, or just a boosted maneuver. Bigfoot could also take advantage of the map's spaces in order to pursue Moon Knight if he is able to get the momentum in his favor.
Yep. But he needs to get that hand advantage up first. You know, Moon Knight sitting at 7 cards, Bigfoot only at 4. Going into another Conchu turn with a hand deficit, unless you choose to draw with your ability, it's a little scary.
Yeah, he might want to here. This is a position where, based on where Jackalope started, you could hide Jackalope so he's out of range of Travelers. Like
Yep.
I talked about before, Jack goes in the top corner, Bigfoot above him, and Travelers, or it's 5 to Jackalope either direction Moon Knight goes. Since he would need to end in that space, the Bigfoot would be standing in essentially if he Travelers there, just with how the connections end up working out.
And I'll maneuver again, staying there. Europe.
So could have gone up in that corner and then drawn with ability to be at 7 as well, but must feel pretty alright about the defenses currently.
And something to know about Bigfoot in particular is, and this is more commonly seen in the Bigfoot Medusa matchup, but it definitely can apply to this one with Moon Knight keeping a hand count so high, is that Bigfoot can definitely start to run low on defenses if he faces enough pressure. Because although he has really good quality of potential blocks, the quantity of them can dwindle, especially under constant attacks.
Wow, we're going to see an 8 value attack here with Conchu using That's Why I Always Win, which is bumped to a 5 and boosted with the healing scheme up to an 8, killing off the Jackalope. Wow, what a massive play there by Ito.
Yeah, loses the healing scheme, but you just saved yourself 6 damage since none of the horns have been used, so I'd say worth the trade-off.
Definitely worth the trade. I think, yeah, like you mentioned, Zach, Kjet would have had to have hidden the Jackalope in that corner there to avoid that. But even then, I think Moon Knight still could have reached him with a boost, right?
He could have boosted, since he boosted with the feint, he would have had to boost with a 2 value card. But he could have still done that exact same play.
Yeah.
It just gets you out of range of Travelers for the double attack.
That is rough.
Okay, good interaction there for Bigfoot at the very least.
Yep, regroup bait into a past and present is ideal. But he is really at a deficit here with even deck counts at 18 apiece. Bigfoot technically has 3 dead cards in his deck, whereas Moon Knight can play everything, being a solo fighter. So if you look at overall card value, Bigfoot's deck has 21 cards, and Moon Knight still has 23. So up by 2 cards, and still has 2 potential healing to match Bigfoot's health. So it's very even, but slightly favored to Moon Knight in terms of the deck count, as well as the fatigue game is just stronger naturally by Conchu. So it's looking pretty Moon Knight favorite after that Jackalope kill.
Yeah, for sure. Horn's also a really good play on the Mr. Knight turns, because you don't really want to be attacking into Mr. Knight, given that he's got that extra defense buff. So getting the auto damage on that turn is ideal. Typically, you want to be throwing your best attacks into Moon Knight or Conchu. You want to be throwing your auto damage into Mr. Knight.
Yeah, this was a great hit by Bigfoot here, getting the log over the 3, preventing the card draw.
Yeah, Bigfoot's been getting a few nice interactions, but without the Jackalope, he might struggle to close this out once he starts taking some hits from Conchu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since we see 3 of the 4 value blocks gone, so half of the 4 is gone. All the skirmishes. So at the very least, all the hoaxes are still left, meaning that you can get out of Traveler's double attack turns by using the hoax on the first attack. So there is still that benefit, but yeah, it's going to start getting a bit rough, especially once those 4s are all spent.
True. You're definitely going to want to save those hoaxes for the Traveler's turns. But looking at this now, Bigfoot does force the initiative onto Moon Knight, although he is going into a Conchu turn, so he doesn't mind that at all. But he does have a pretty significant health lead, at least at the moment, so it can still definitely go either way.
He found the corner, so Travelers doesn't reach for a double attack turn.
Yep, because Ito wasn't in that direct center like we talked about.
Yep. And because Bigfoot was adjacent to that spot.
Here we go. Here's the key card. The key card.
Getting them into attack.
That's right. Couldn't have done it without insanity.
So, John, speaking of insanity, what do you think the odds are that Moon Knight decides to attack with the other insanity?
0. Honestly, I think at this point, Moon Knight just wants damage. I don't think he cares to attack with that. I think he's probably going to need it in a following turn for a boost yet again, because that's kind of the only dead card in the deck, so to speak.
I mean, it would have been a great attack into that into that
Oh, this is ideal.
imagination.
Bigfoot is just winning all the combat interactions, actually.
Yeah.
If this continues, this trend continues, I can definitely see Bigfoot taking this game still.
I mean, if that had been insanity on the offense, it would have been a wasted cancel. So I'm just saying.
Yeah,
True.
something to note is that to kill the Jackalope, Moon Knight boosted for a heal, which means he's actually down a pass and 2 health. So Bigfoot actually, you're right, John. If he keeps playing perfectly, and only if he keeps playing perfectly, he could be able to pull this off.
Yeah, and honestly, I would have liked to see Ito wait and use that auto damage attack on offense during a Traveler's turn, expecting the hoax to come out, right? Because then you still deal damage through the hoax because of the auto, and you don't feel that bad about it. And I think it's just less likely that your attack is going to get canceled on the first action attack after Travelers.
Yeah.
Both players look laser focused.
Yeah, Ito's confidence may be wavering a little bit in this position. Going up against the old menace.
And the biggest thing is both players have said they will ask the losing player what happened. So this takes an urban higher for them.
That is true. Who is going to get asked the question?
So, wouldn't be surprised to see. So I like the positioning from Ito. You don't take that center spot, but you're not going into a Conchu turn yet, so it doesn't matter as much. And it puts you 4 away from Bigfoot. So Bigfoot would have to boost if he wants to attack, which I wouldn't be surprised to see because Bigfoot is going to overdraw otherwise. Boosts with a feint.
Ooh, that hurts because boosting with anything that's not a Jackalope Horns is essentially wasted value.
Yeah.
Wow. Bigfoot just
Another shift.
continuing to deal
Last
damage.
one did 1 over the same block, but it was Mr. Knight this time. Moon Knight going to take 2 from that. So yeah, pushing that aggression.
But he's going to run into a situation using all these shifts on offense where he just doesn't have any defenses left.
Yeah.
I would be a little bit concerned there. Now, this is a great hoax, but Ito can just choose not to change forms and then just naturally change at the end of the turn with 6 cards in hand, feeling pretty good about it.
Yep. Fortunately for Ito, the change on I'm Not Real is optional, so...
Yep, and because Hoax, Kjet was already in that center stage spot, he has to move away if he wants to avoid that second attack, so now Ito does get to take center and set up for a Traveler's turn.
Yeah.
And with such a hand disparity, I don't know that Bigfoot necessarily wants to attack into Conchu.
But
Yeah,
there's such a health
fair.
difference that even if Bigfoot has to take it 1 undefended hit from Conchu, if he keeps going with these if every other interaction still goes perfectly, even after eating a huge attack, Bigfoot still could pull this off.
True.
Yeah, no, Kjet's definitely still in it quite considerably. It's going to be... It's really going to come down to, I think, this next Conchu turn to see if Ito can start swinging it in his direction. Because if Bigfoot just double maneuvers here, and even if... I think Bigfoot might even be able to draw with ability. And that'll mean that if Conchu does go in with Travelers and then do a double attack, then that's going to be down to 3 cards to Bigfoot's probably 5, meaning Bigfoot could put some pretty good counter pressure out. Okay. Oak's going to get Bigfoot out of the double attack, but Ito will get that's the part I like, effect off. It's to draw the top 3 cards of Bigfoot's deck, discard 1 of them, and then put the other 2 back in whatever order he chooses. So he'll be able to ditch the best of the 3 cards. He would love to probably see the other hoax, a log.
Yep.
and then he gets a little bit of knowledge of what's coming up for Bigfoot as well. Which is a
So,
momentous shift.
so Zach, I know that you're a very knowledgeable Unmatched player, and this is a very balanced matchup, I would say, in general. Do you think that Bigfoot will wait until he physically is unable to defend to be eating a hit, or do you think that he will intentionally try to find the opportune moment to take a hit while he still has defenses available?
So I feel like it's probably going to be more along the lines of the former, just because there's not a lot of attacks that Conchu really can bait with. I guess like an Insanity is possible, though now they're both gone. Um, and other than that, like if you don't block, you're taking at least 5, pretty much. And most cards that you're going to be attacked with, you're taking 6. So I don't really know, at least in this matchup, if there's much reason to not block a Conchu attack if you're able to. It's just kind of figuring out what defenses to use when. Because, for example, Fainting is better against Totally Sane Thing to Do, or That's the Part I Like, whereas value blocking with the Hoax, Skirmish, etc. is going to be better against things like Good Enough for Us, I'm Not Real, and whatnot. So yeah, I feel like as long as you have defenses, you probably want to block Conchu, because you're just taking so much of your health otherwise.
Yeah, and do we know what the card discarded?
It was the last momentous shift.
Last shift. Okay.
So not only a card that can be a 5 on offense, but just another block card that Bigfoot no longer has access to.
Yeah, things are gonna get a lot harder with that shift gone, because that could have been a key card in order to get some like 1 or 2 extra damage on Moon Knight.
Yep. All right. So using Totally Same Thing to Do on defense as Mr. Knight, not even as Khonshu, could mean that the defenses are a bit sparse. We did see a boost to get Moon Knight further away, but fortunately it was a feint trying to catch probably a defensive That's the Part I Like, or maybe just get a big block out of the way, since the feints aren't amazing against Khonshu attacks, though. At this point, Bigfoot does only have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 3 block cards left. He's got a feint, a hoax, and an imagination.
Wow.
And that's about it. I mean, regroups, sure, but those don't really count in my
Yeah,
opinion.
those, if anything, when you're pushing a fatigue game, which it looks like this is going towards, those are even a detriment because you're losing more health than you're even
it's essentially
saving.
blocking for -1 in that
Exactly.
case, which is not what you want.
Yeah, this is looking very scary for Bigfoot just because of the lack of defenses. Like, there were so many attacks in the earlier game where they were shifts, and they were good shifts, but man, if those were savageries instead and you were getting the same amount of damage because savagery gets that auto, it would result in the same net damage. Kjet would be in such a better spot if he still at least had those shifts to defend with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, because savagery would have been really good there instead of the feint if Ito blocks with the Totally Sane Thing to do, because he's taking 3 over that. Or sorry, it would be only 2 because he was Mr. Knight. But he's taking 1 from the combat and then 1 from the after combat effect. Of course, if Kjet is expecting the Totally Sane Thing to do, if Ito is expecting something like a savagery, savagery does not get any damage, and Ito gets to discard another one of your cards. So taking a calculated risk with that feint, and unfortunately, not quite paying off for Kjet there.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as you, Zach. I would have liked to see a savagery there because Bigfoot could definitely afford the 2 auto damage, and I don't think Moon Knight was Khonshu at that time, so not only would so Bigfoot could have afforded the 2 damage, and then it would be 2 damage on Moon Knight if he wanted it, and then Bigfoot would have another blocking option, because even though a feint is extremely suboptimal against Khonshu, it's better than nothing. So yeah, so I definitely agree with what you're saying. And now this is the chance where ETOCUD knows that there's 3 savageries left now too. He can just block big, anticipating savageries or logs.
Yep.
Although Ito is running low on big defenses himself. I mean, that was the last 4 value. He has 1 more past and present. Otherwise, all the values are 3 or lower. So
how many regroups does Bigfoot have left?
The downside,
I believe 2. 2 regroups left.
Yes.
Correct. The thing I was going to mention is the savagery is pretty bad into Conchu because even if you win, you're not getting the extra auto damage, and then it's obviously quite bad into Mr. Knight because any of the 3 value blocks let you avoid the auto damage and combat damage.
Right,
So
because
it's really
Savagery
only
has to
good
win.
into the Moon Knight form,
Yep.
which is why we see the savagery used there in the Moon Knight form. But of course, having the 4 value, your safest block against both a log and savagery. So good calls out by Ito, but
Yeah. We see Moon Knight popping his healing, and he spent the other one to finish the Jackal off. So this is going to be Moon Knight's final health for the remainder of the game. He's not going to have the ability to gain anymore.
True, and even though
And
Bigfoot only has 3 defenses left, you're really pushing close to fatigue here, and there was a Conchu turn just wasted right there, so that's really rough for Ito.
And the reason I was asking about the regroup count was because I'm almost wondering if it's viable for Kjet to go for one more regroup bait on a Moon Knight turn, just to try cleaning out any optimal defenses so that he can get a really nice log connection, or maybe he'll just go for savageries, hoping that things can go somewhat smoothly.
Yeah, I think at this point, savageries are your best bait, honestly, just to, you know, if you get something out of it, cool. If not, at least you tried. I don't think you want to be pushing yourself further into the deck count. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's going to be hard for Bigfoot to close this out, and this is often what we see happen. Zach, even in the Chad game that I mentioned that you streamed, in the top 32, I believe, the Moon Knight versus Bigfoot, it was a very similar situation where, you know, Bigfoot seemed like he was ahead and then just couldn't find the damage to close it out because Moon Knight can be very tanky when he needs to be.
yeah.
And another
Yeah.
point to note is, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, exhaustion really coming into play here, and Bigfoot does have one more pass. So players basically even on deck since Bigfoot can, even if Bigfoot maneuvers here, he'll still have that pass at some point, whereas Moon Knight's out of passes. Um, but and Bigfoot with the slight health lead, but there's a turn that that could happen in fatigue that would let Conchu double maneuver and avoid exhaustion damage, which kind of evens things out. Kind of the sneaky
Yep.
exhaustion math that Moon Knight can force because of that ability.
Oh, there's a regroup bait.
Okay.
Yeah, love to see it. Love to see those regroups. The point I was gonna make was the exact same as Zach, is that Conchu is definitely excellent in fatigue because he can safely maneuver with no cards, take no damage. But I am very happy to see Kjet opt using those regroups to really pester and chip away at ETOCUD's defense count. But that being said, it will also put him just that much closer to fatigue, which could be very problematic, especially because the healths are close enough that ETOCUD can maneuver away his Conchu.
If Ito had used, that's the part I like there, it would have been a disaster for
Yeah,
Kjet.
that's the
Because I
big
don't know if there's
risk.
going to be a great point for Kjet to, or for Ito to actually get that effect off. Because if he does it on a Conchu turn on offense, Kjet still has 2 cancels. And so it's unlikely getting through. So getting some damage through would be nice, but Bigfoot eventually, or very soon, going to be out of deck, which means that the discard value from that's the part I like will not be relevant at that point. Could have been expecting a log there though, which means that that's the part I like would have been a pretty bad block into that.
And we see Moon Knight on the kind of defensive, camping on the opposite side of the map. But Bigfoot is up 4 health and still has a pass. So I anticipate Moon Knight needs to get one more good Conchu connection in order to seal this, or else it's going to be too close for comfort, especially with the log being able to chip over any remaining defenses.
Look at Ito right now, completely stone-faced. I mean, this is completely different, you know, body language than what we saw in the What Happened pregame show. The pressure, I think, is both of these players are feeling the pressure right now. They're getting down to the final few turns, and it's still pretty unclear who's going to win this game, but, man, this is intense.
And ETOCUD wisely using his time. He has so much saved up that he can really take a turn that is pretty substantial to really think out everything. I know me and Zach have talked a lot about on his streams how the timer has definitely kind of given players more incentive to wait for the one turn to really map everything out and really truly think instead of spending every single turn taking 20-minute turns. They really need to play at a good pace and then finally late game come to that final turn where they need to think about every possibility and go for it. So I think both players now that they still have so much time in the late game are really going to be thinking and playing as best as they humanly can.
Oh, that was big.
Yep. Ito would not wanted to swap there anyways.
Right.
Most damage he can get from that interaction.
That was a game changer, I feel.
So now there's essentially only one. Well, there's only one cancel and one hoax remaining for Bigfoot, so I imagine we'll see the hoax tried to be safe for the Conchu turn to avoid the double attack, but
Got to expect a log here, right? Because I don't think Ito wants
Yeah.
to throw anything like auto damage on defense. He just wants to value block the best he can because at this point he just needs to preserve health. He will be winning in the fatigue game, I believe. Just because of
Probably.
how Conchu works. If he can cycle back around to another Conchu turn, that is. If he gets too low, like maneuvering in fatigue as Moon Knight and has to end Conchu, but like with only a little bit of health, right? Bigfoot could potentially go for a log lethal. Well, not anymore, but even a savagery, right? Some kind of lethal when Conchu's trying to cycle in back into Conchu for the fatigue play. Moon Knight
Yeah, it's
definitely running
interesting
low on
because
defenses.
with a hoax, getting out of a potential travelers into double attack turn, Ito a bit low from where he'd probably want to be to take full advantage of that Conchu exhaustion avoidance. Just because if he has travelers here and then Bigfoot blocks with hoax, he will be able to get away and force another maneuver. We don't see travelers.
That was a well. The travelers wouldn't reach, right? Because that was a perfect crash through the
Oh,
trees.
you're right, because
by
he's not in
Kjet.
that green blue.
Moving
Yep.
5 spaces just out of
Yep.
reach of the travelers. That was an excellent play, keeping his deck
Yep.
count at 2. That was a perfect turn by Kjet. He's really just
Yeah.
been navigating this whole matchup very well, playing from behind with losing the jackalope so early, but he's just been making all the right calls.
Yeah, and he took control of that center spot, so Moon Knight could get close, but not to the spot that gives the guaranteed travelers.
Yep.
So
this may
now,
be the last. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say this is probably what you were going to say. This is the last opportunity for that's the part.
Yep,
I like.
exactly,
That's
yep.
probably what it is, which means Kjet can probably feint it or imagination, and that's also going to be a good imagination block there.
Actually, that's the part I like, was perfect defense right here.
It's true.
Otherwise,
It's
Bigfoot
true.
doesn't want to double maneuver and end with no cards in deck, right? So this is the point to use it on defense because you know that there's no logs left and no shifts, so it can't be more than a 4.
But it might just result in Kjet having to do the double maneuver.
Yeah, you
'Cause
either
attacking
double maneuver
here
and end your turn,
into-
or
That's the part I like. Seems real bad.
well, I think no. Well, either way, you're going to lose both the cards left in your deck, right? But it might be better to at least knock one of the remaining defenses out. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's definitely close.
Even if you maneuver, you can't get too far away here, which is a little rough.
That's weird because I did switch to this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, both players spending so much time is definitely crunch time, and they can really map everything out. And I think both players are in their heads thinking about the fatigue game, knowing that Conchu can get that kind of natural pass, but then Bigfoot is ahead in deck count ever so slightly. And there's also the remote factor that the last 2 cards on top of deck are essentially useless, and that savagery resulting in a discard, even though it's unfortunate that he's losing cards anyways.
Yeah, with that
He-
said, Connor, there is a possibility too that that's the part I like, is the last card in Ito's deck. So maybe
yeah,
you
that's
got to
what my
take the
thought was gonna
risk.
be. I mean, yeah, he's gonna lose the card either way, so it's like, well, might as well try and at least get a card out of his hand instead of just not trying and then just scuffling away, and then Moon Knight has more options on how to approach the situation.
Right.
Yeah. And the I'm not real that was used earlier did get 2 damage through, but now we're really seeing where it can be helpful to have that still as Moon Knight here to be able to get to that Conchu turn sooner. For
Right.
instance, you could, if you can
boost and reach Bigfoot on this next turn, it would allow you to attack with that, and at this point both the cancels would be out of the way, so Hope's the only block.
Yeah, we're seeing why Jackalope is so valuable in this matchup. Like, I know John was saying how earlier you want to get usually at least two out of your three Jackalope played. So if Moon Knight had eaten two Jackalope and been down to 4 at this point, then Bigfoot would have a almost confirmed victory. But now, because the Jackalope immediately died, it's gonna be much, much more difficult.
Yeah, not just because of the health difference, Connor, but also the passes that the Jackalope horns give, right? Bigfoot wouldn't be nearly as close to fatigue.
Yep. Instead of boosting around, he could be simply scheming and then maneuvering back, and he'd be up another like 1 or 2 cards because of that, and he'd be in a much different position than right now, where he's almost clocked out and struggling to find the last damage he needs against Mr. Knight.
Looks like he is going to go for the double maneuver turn. It's going to deplete his deck. It's very scary. He only has, what, the 1 defense left, being the hoax?
Yep.
That's it. So
Groups are
even
a negative block at this point.
right, even not Conchu, like non-Conchu attacks, right, are threatening at this point.
Yep.
The question is, what
Oh,
card
the timer's
does
getting
Moon Knight-
dangerously low. Oh, okay, finishes just in time. Sorry, go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, that's fine. As Moon Knight, what defenses does Moon Knight have left that could stop savagery?
So let's see. He has, that's the part I
don't
like,
think
which
it's
only
anything
would
when you're
stop
not
it
Mr. Knight.
on Mr. Knight. And he has a Fist of Conchu. So those are his 3 value blocks. Otherwise, he has 2 feints and a totally sane thing to do. So,
so he can feint it, but he still takes 2, which is basically the same as blocking with one of the 3s.
yeah.
And Moon Knight still has a copy of Travelers, right?
He still has Travelers, which I think is literally going to be the key right here. Because, again, even if you're not Conchu, Travelers can be huge. Because you can
but-
Travelers and attack, and Bigfoot hoaxes away, and then you maneuver, and that's going to make Bigfoot maneuver up to you and not start his turn adjacent, which is a big deal, because then when he maneuvers up to you for the counter attack, you know he no longer has any defenses, so then you just finish him off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm wondering if he goes in and then Bigfoot might eat some damage and then get some nice savagery connection and then pull back. But I think at this point, ETOCUD should have it. But I think those savageries, if they can get in at the right time, Kjet might be able to pull it back if there's some slight positioning errors.
Yeah, I think Connor makes a good point that Kjet could just not block
Yeah,
if Ito does go for that play, and it might be the right call.
we are going to see the Travelers.
Because if he eats damage, he keeps up on cards. He can maybe savagery and then hoax on offense, but I'm not sure. It's gonna be very risky, and it all comes down to what the last card in Moon Knight's deck is.
Yeah, you never know. The offensive hoax, that movement in the late game like this can just steal games if you're not thinking about it.
Because at this point in the game, 4 value attacks into Moon Knight and Khonshu will be damaged. It's just a matter of Mr. Knight being the safe spot, but then as Mr. Knight fatigues, that's the problem. So if Kjet can navigate this portion of the game and survive through this last Khonshu turn, then he might be able to force ETOCUD into some big fatigue damage.
Yeah, it looks like Kjet does have some support here, though. He's got a cheerleader behind him.
Yep.
Cat coming in clutch. Yeah, it's tough because Ito, he's not going to get to Khonshu for, well, I guess this is his Mr. Knight turn, then he's going to go Moon Knight at the end, and then he'll only have 1 turn to worry about fatigue, and then he is into Khonshu. So this is down to the wire. That's the part I like, is no longer an effect card. It's a blank 3 at this point.
I think Kjet has to take this because the highest it can be is what, a 3? Does he have any 4s left to attack with even?
No.
Oh, it's not
So-
it's not Kjet anymore. It's Kjet. He's got the Kjet behind him.
Yep.
There's no more
Yeah.
reds, so anything Ito attacks with is also a defense lost.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Kjet just eats the damage, and then
Could be an offensive feint just to stop the hoax. from
Yeah,
moving away.
it's
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
probably what Kjet is considering right now. That's a great point.
and even if it's not, then Ooh, it could be a what? Does he have a Fist of Conchu left?
Yes,
does.
that could be
He
massive.
could do a knockback and then force some scheme damage, which I'm suspecting might be what ETOCUD's thinking, because that also could let Moon Knight form, reposition, and then Conchu can go back in. But it's definitely a big mind game, and again, the last card in deck makes things that much more problematic for Kjet.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't mind taking that's the part I like here, just because you don't have, it's not going to get any value from the effect. It's just the 3 damage attack right now. So it's
I think
really tough to decide whether to take this or not.
I think
Yeah.
what Kjet needs to think is that at worst it's 3 damage from the attack and then 2 from fatigue if it's fist, and anything else is great for him. And then even if it's worst case scenario, he still can go back in there and get some nice damage. So I think he needs to just assess that this worst case situation still isn't to a point where he's confirmed lost the game, and he can still get back in there and get some nice connections.
So you want to see him take it, Connor?
Oh yeah, take
I
it.
think I agree. Yeah.
I think taking it has the highest payoff potential. Oh, but it is the fist. Well, that's rough because now it's going to force Bigfoot into a double maneuver turn. I believe.
boost.
I don't think he can. I think Moon Knight can hide, right, in the solo pink. Up in the top left corner, and then Bigfoot can't get to him at all. So Bigfoot would have to double maneuver down to 3 on his next turn.
Yeah, but that would require Moon Knight to boost, though, right?
Yes, it would.
I guess that's probably still fine, though.
This really is down to the wire. And
I
it's
think
moments
him
like
taking
these.
that-
Go ahead, Connor.
Good. I was just gonna say, I think him taking that, even though it's the worst case scenario, still leaves him with enough cards to maneuver around any shenanigans Ito might pull. But go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too, Connor, because like keeping the defense, if Ito wants to go in for another attack, the mind game is still there, right? Other than perfect knowledge of, oh, I know my opponent doesn't have any defenses left. So Kjet, by taking it, he prolongs the mind games, which could result in a misplay, you know, which might let him win this game, even though it's not looking good at the moment.
Yeah, so pushing him down here lets him do the same thing without having to boost.
Mm-hmm.
And that might seal the game, that positioning.
Yeah.
Maneuvers down to 3, maneuvers down to 4, Conchu maneuvers in, or maneuvers away, and then that's down to 1, blocks, and then attacks, and then it should be it.
It's also the 3-value block against Savagery when you're Conchu means you're only taking 1 actually, because you don't take that auto damage. Yeah, so forcing the double maneuver here is huge, because now you can just double maneuver and I think you're fine.
Yep.
So Moon Knight gets his hop,
Now Bigfoot
doesn't get him
has
in
to go
position.
next turn.
Yeah, actually,
you
Moon Knight can just
don't
double
go.
maneuver, right? And
Yeah.
his
Yep,
Conchu.
that's what I was saying. Yep, go down to 4, then Bigfoot maneuvers down to 1, boosts in attacks, gets blocked.
And
Then
actually, then you
Conchu
can
just
just
wails
double
on
maneuver
her.
as Conchu. You don't even have to attack as Conchu.
Just the BM.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Man, I hate Conchu. Oh, that scumbag not taking fatigue damage is just ridiculous.
Yep, so you're just going to see a double maneuver. Now, if you go into Savagery, you can block with 3, you only take 1. And then you double maneuver as Conchu. Bigfoot would be at 1 because he's forced to maneuver at least once here. And yeah, we're seeing a huge difference with none of the horns getting off this game.
So Zach, what are the odds that Kjet's cat turns ETOCUD's monitor off, and then ETOCUD takes his savagery undefended?
You know, there's always a chance.
Ito knows he wins. He's messing with him at this point.
Yeah.
Saying boost with the savagery. Let's see it. There's no log. Conchu can even just defend with the auto damage.
That's true. That's true.
I'm sad we don't both end in the negative, though. Oh, never mind. I'm
Kjet just trying to scramble and trying to find any chance a victory, but just going through the motions here, throws the attack. 1 damage. I like the disengage. Good attempt, but
Just
not-
barely too late. And if those Jackal Horns had come through, then it could have been already over for Bigfoot.
maneuver doesn't take any damage in fatigue because he's Conchu.
Yep.
Throws an attack,
Could
which will
just
be a
run, but I like doing the attack because
1, 2, 4.
this is
Yep.
guaranteed even with the hooks.
and
block.
that's 2 damage, and that'll do
Amazing.
it. Wow, let's listen in and see what the
Man.
players have to say.
Yep.
Thank God. That was
Oh.
very, yeah, that's very rough. I think Jackalope dying that earlier clutched it for me. I did have to use the healing, which was scary, but I thought I have
Yeah.
to, because it's 3 passes gone. That's what I was thinking about. I'm thinking this always goes for exhaustion. 3 passes gone, so it's away.
Yeah, if I had these earlier, I could have swung the game a little bit, I think.
Oh no, I think it
Yeah.
absolutely made a difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this turn was really interesting. The one we were like travelers here.
Yeah.
We were like this and like travelers. That was very interesting because I didn't have the. That's the part I like.
Yeah.
That's the, that was the
Okay.
last card in my deck. So if you attacked here, that would have been very weird for me. But I think I always clutch it out with the feints.
Yeah, the feints. I mean, would have done 1 damage to you, but my reasoning was at least I can attack you, and then you play this, and I'm still lost both my cards,
Yeah.
and then I still have to maneuver.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Uh,
If I had it, it was brutal.
Yeah, but this was.
But yeah, here I attack with this because I thought I always win. I was counting turns, and I thought I always win. I push you here, and then
Yeah, and if I defended
yeah,
it,
if
well,
you pose, I still have to.
Wow. Well, we heard them say, Ito said that that's the part I like. It was his last card in deck. So on that crucial turn, the second to last turn, when we were, debating whether Bigfoot wanted to double maneuver and deplete his deck fully or try to make an attack for the savagery and then maneuver afterwards, it would have paid off. But man, those are hard calls to make because, what are the chances the card's the last card? But
Yeah.
anytime you ask the question, it's always got to be 100%, right? So
Yep.
maybe Kjet had a misplay there by not following the golden rule. But wow, what a close game. Connor, what do you think about that end game there?
Well, you always gotta love the fatigue game as an unmatched player, and that was a great fatigue game indeed. It's unfortunate that it had to be Kanchu winning the fatigue game, because I do love the big 3. But both players played amazingly. They both really locked in towards the end. They both proved themselves by beating each other on their opponent's advantages. And all in all, neither of them have any big misplays to be ashamed of. They both played as best they could with the information they had, and I'm very impressed with both of them.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up too, that they each won on their opponent's advantage, and that is definitely not an easy thing to do because advantage in this game can make a huge difference with both the map and the starting position choice. It really swings a game. So, wow, what a game there. And Zach, I mean, any closing thoughts on that game or that match in general?
No, I mean it's exactly what I was hoping for with going into this. Again, I've seen both these players quite a bit, played against each of them a few times. Probably Kjet more than Ito, but Ito more recently. And yeah, I mean I was just hoping for a really close set, and it's always nice to see it go to the max number of games possible. In this case, 3. So yeah, I don't think I could have asked for anything more. 3 really close games, no blowouts in any way, and some really good play and awesome interactions throughout. Always a pleasure to see a high-level game like this.
Yeah, it really was a spectacle to watch. I'm really happy I got to witness that and commentate that. That was just a fantastic match. Every single game was honestly just down to the wire. It couldn't have really been much closer at all. So that was just awesome. You love to see it. And I think we will be getting the players on for some interviews momentarily. We'll be bringing on, I believe, yeah, we'll both, Kjet and Ito will both come on for interviews. Yeah, we'll get Kjet on here first. Yep, all right. They're working on the technical side, getting Kjet in here for the interview, but wow, what a game. I am sad very sad personally to see both Yananga and Genie lose. And Bigfoot, what happened? Connor, what happened here? Oh my gosh, my number, like basically number 1, 2, and 3 right now, all got the
Yep.
L's in this match. And all of my most hated fighters, well, maybe not most, but all the other ones pulled out all the wins. Wow. But yeah, it really was a fantastic match overall. So I'm happy with it. Even though all my guys lost. That's okay. Maybe next time. Maybe Ito will pull them out in grands and wipe the floor with whoever his opponent may be. Speaking of which, the next match is going to be Unmatched Chad versus Little Expressionless Animal. That's going to be in just a couple hours from now. It should start in less than 2 hours. So definitely don't go anywhere, in between now and then. You're going to want to catch all the action live. But also for grand finals, it is daylight savings time tomorrow for US. And so essentially we're going to be starting an hour earlier than what we originally planned on, because 10 a.m. Eastern, which is what we started today, that's actually going to be 9 a.m. tomorrow. So anybody who's not in the US and doesn't change their clocks, make sure that you're aware of that, and we will essentially be starting an hour earlier for the grand finals. Definitely don't want to hop in, an hour in, and you're like, well, crap, I missed the cool deck highlights, and they're already into game 2. What happened, So
Also, all three of us are commentating tomorrow for the grand finals, right?
that is correct, and we will have another special guest on with us who we will not reveal yet, but it's going to be a great time as always. Okay. All right. Yep, still working on the technical side. Now, with Ito, I mean, he lived up to his words, I guess, right? With what he said ahead of time, he doesn't have to eat those words. So
Yeah, I mean he's been confident ever since the bracket started. He had a pretty tough run to get here, and he took it one game at a time and kept up that confidence. And it's been paying off. So he's that much closer. He's only now one match away from getting that championship that he's been aiming for.
one match away. He's so close. He can feel it. Man, who has he had to get through, though? He's taken out some big names to get here. Bryden was one of the most notable ones that I can think of. Bryden was he debuted in the very first tournament, the premier tournament that we ever hosted here. He was in the winners finals against, losers finals, I guess it was, but because we were doing different tournament style back then with the elimination bracket. But he was up against Prospero in the first tournament, and that's where we saw the legendary Sinbad upset over Bigfoot. So that was a great match. But yeah, Bryden's been a really solid, top player ever since, and Ito had to get through him to make it to where he is today. He also had to
take out HS Destroyer.
HS Destroyer knocked me out.
Knocked you out, yeah.
He was the one who knocked me out.
It was either you or HS Destroyer between like who he's gonna have to face after getting past Bryden, and yeah, I mean, either way.
Either way, tough opponent.
Really tough opponent. And then Flum was his opponent in the top 32, who is also
another
a really
great player.
Consistent player.
Yeah. So it's not an easy road for any of these players at this point. All the players who made it to the top 32 bracket are just really good players. They've proven themselves getting out of pools, and it's just really difficult through elimination. It's tough because any misplay that changes the whole thing.
Was some of the roughest that I've seen. Like, there is so much competition, and I think it's just as more people join the scene, and we see more people get into it, and I think ladder helps a lot because we see a lot of the players that made it out of pools were people that have had a lot of success on ladder, and even though it's a different format than something like this tourney, it's more limited. You get a lot of plays in, and you get to try out different matchups and get info from that as well. Especially since new fighters typically go onto the ladder the month after they officially release. You get a lot of play with the newer fighters, maybe more so than people who don't actively play ladder, and that can give a big leg up, even if you're not practicing the specific matchups that you'll be facing in tournament. just getting more familiar with fighters like Houdini and Genie who have a lot of tricks to them and how to play them optimally. That experience does add up over time. So
Yeah,
I think one of the reasons that you see a lot of these ladder players doing well. I mean, also if they're doing well in ladder, it means they're good players in the first place. So
Yep.
and speaking
Yeah.
of experience, I heard that people who subscribe to Zero Skater 12 on Patreon actually get 10 times better at the game. So
heard this as well.
everyone in the stream chat should all subscribe to Zero Skater 12 on Patreon. You'll all be finalists.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks for the
It's the
shout
reason
out.
I didn't make it out of pools. I got to go subscribe right now.
That's right. What are
Get
you
that-
Yep.
doing,
that
man?
boost. I don't know. I was only on Twitch. I got to get on that Patreon.
That's right. All right. Well, looks like Kjet is good to go. So let's snag him up for an interview. All right. Welcome, Kjet. First of all, just congratulations, man, on an amazing tournament run. You made it all the way to the top 4. That's very impressive out of 112 starting players. You've had some really tough competition leading up to this point, and you guys just put on quite the show here in this match. So, I mean, how are you feeling overall about making the top 4?
I mean, it's also what I said in my interview, right? Going to the top 4 is really nice. At the previous 2 tournaments, I was just out of top 16, so that I could get here and finally get the full. That was my first goal, so I'm happy with that. And then suddenly I got to top 4, so I got the set as well. But of course, when you're here, you want to go to the finals.
Of course.
But yeah, Ito played really well, and he just got me, so shit happens.
Yep. Sometimes
life finds a way.
Exactly. Life finds a way, indeed, as we saw Sattler do in that first game. So I do just want to ask, though, about your mindset, Kjet. After that game 1, it was looking a little rough for Genie. Did that get you flustered at all? Did that play into, like your mindset and your performance going into game 2?
No, not at all. I don't know if you guys get the vibe a little bit, but I'm really relaxed always. So stress is not really something I have. So I just look at the moment and I'll see how it goes. But indeed, the first one didn't went that well. And nice thing, by the way, I told it already. The second game started horrible for me as well. I started with a scheme and 4 red cards, so I mulliganed that because you won the defense. Then I got 5 red cards. Luckily, Ito he maneuvered, otherwise
Yeah.
would have gone the other way. But after that, I got the best card and then finally my first defense. But yeah, it started really rough, but still keep your head cool and see whatever happens. Otherwise, if you're stressing, probably you're just going to make it more difficult for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, honestly, that's part of the reason why you made it to where you are, because there's a lot of stress that can come up in these, high-pressure tournament situations. But you've just stayed calm, cool, and collected the whole time. And I think that's why you're, seeing the success that you are, because you're not letting any little misplays or anything, you're not letting it get to you. You just keep on, you move on, you learn from it, and you just do better in the next game. So you're just constantly improving. That's very impressive to see, man. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So how about you guys? Any other questions or comments specifically from the other commentators?
Oh, well, I have the question, and then I also have one normal question. So first, Kjet, what happened?
I was terrible. No, yeah. I guess all the games were down to the wire, so I wouldn't say there was a real misplay on my side. Maybe you guys picked something up, but
I agree. I didn't
don't
discern
think
anything.
so.
You played really well.
The only thing, and of course that's hindsight, but it was really a decision point for me. I was doubting between Genie and Bigfoot on advantage. If I would have done that, I had Sattler, Bigfoot, of course, yeah. Then we would be having a different conversation probably. So that's my only regret in the end. But yeah, that's hindsight.
And then my other question to you is, so I know that there's a lot of people in the stream today. I think we almost hit 90 earlier. What advice would you have to somebody who wants to get into the competitive scene? What kind of general tips and tricks would you provide to anyone who wanted to join the next tournament that's coming up?
Practice a lot, I say. I think it was my first tournament was Winter of Champions a year ago. And when that started, I was just playing for a month. And still I got to place 20 or something. I was just playing a mad amount of times. So if you really want to get a bit well, just play a lot and you will get there. And one thing, I've seen discussion about it quite a lot. really don't neglect the draft system. At least for me, in this tournament run, I got quite a bit of advantaged uh, fights because I was really focusing on my opponent and scanning them, and quite a bit of work went into that. So of course, getting a lot of matchup knowledge, practice a lot, but also don't ignore the format.
Yeah, that's a great point. The format plays a huge role in any unmatched tournament that we run because sometimes the formats differ from each other, but no matter what the format is, it's going to matter, right? The draft is
Yeah.
huge because this is an asymmetrical game, so you're never going to be on exact even footing, so you need to try to give yourself the best advantage you can in the draft to set you up for success in the actual games. And then, of course, you just need the experience to play the game out well and not make misplays and all of that. But yeah, that's a great point. The draft is a huge aspect of competitive Unmatched, especially. So, great advice. How about you, Zach? Any specific comments or questions?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, congrats for making it this far, and I know that you've been improving each tourney, and so that's always what you love to see if you're trying to make it further. And I mean, each of these games was so close that just a tiny little difference here or there, and a lot of the things that could make those differences weren't even misplays. I think, like Connor said, it's just like, making calls in combat. Sometimes you have 50-50s, and if you make the wrong call, then you end up on the worst side of it. But it's not necessarily a mistake. It's just you made the wrong call, and either player is subject to that. So yeah, I think that played extremely well. Some very tight games, some very entertaining games to watch. And while I don't have any specific questions, I would like to cap it off saying that last game in particular, losing Jackalope before any of the horns went off and still making it as close as you did, like that's no easy feat. So really,
Yeah.
really fun games and really well played by you.
Thank you. Yeah, that wasn't the best start either, but yeah, it happens. Thank you.
Yeah. What were you thinking, Kat, after that happened in that third game? It's turn 2 or 3 or whatever, and Jackalope goes down. Did you feel like you still had a chance to win, or were you feeling kind of defeated at that point?
My reasoning was, okay, it's getting difficult, but I still have a chance, so don't worry about it. I'll just see how it develops. Again, the part, okay, if I'm stressing now, then I'm gonna make misplays or whatever.
Yep.
So just ignore that it just happened, and yeah, just go.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what you got to do. You just got to keep on fighting until the health dial actually says 0, right? Because
Yes.
anything can happen up until the last turn, and misplays happen, and those 50-50s that Zach mentioned, you never know. So, yeah, just man, it was really a pleasure to watch this match. One of the most entertaining matches I've ever witnessed. Honestly, it had all of my favorite fighters in it. Yananga, Bigfoot, Genie, but unfortunately, all 3 of them were the ones who got the losses. But
Maybe that's the problem then.
that is the problem, yeah. But overall, it was just really great to watch, and you played really well. So, congrats again on top 4. And is there anything you'd like to say to the viewers out there, or any shout-outs you want to do?
Uh, well, the shout out, thanks for everyone for watching the stream. It's always nice to do this for a crowd. And also for all the people that were supporting me, especially the group that I still have from the team tourney that we had with the Kjet, Spain, Bjorn, and such. We practiced quite a lot as well together, so they helped me a lot. So especially shout out for them, and in general all the people that were backing me up.
Yeah, definitely very important to have practice partners and people to bounce ideas off of and test matchups and everything. So the support goes a long way. So yeah, that's always great to see. But Kiet, again, man, congrats. I hope to see you again in a future tournament, and hopefully your trend keeps it up and you can improve further and get to the grand finals next time.
Yeah, I hope it as well. Thank you.
All right, man.
Thanks for streaming, and good luck today.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Take care,
Bye-bye.
Kiet.
Peace.
And we have Ito. Okay, looks like he's taking a nap after his big win, huh?
Yeah, my bad.
You there, Ito? You awake?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
How you doing, man? Congrats on your big win, advancing to the grand finals. Just how you feeling after that one?
I don't know. I just kind of, chill. Easy wins, no sweat, never doubt.
As you stated in your What Happened pregame interview, I guess you stayed true to your words and you got the win, man. So
Yeah.
Wow, those were some intense games, all of them down to the wire, and you just clutched it out just barely. So, really well played overall. I'm a little disappointed because all of my favorite fighters got the L's. You know, Yananga, Bigfoot, Genie, they all got the losses, unfortunately. And but overall, it was just super entertaining to watch, man. So, very well done.
Not bad. Yeah, I mean, I had to give up the Houdini Yen game. You know, 2-0s, as much as, Connor likes them, like, the audience doesn't like them as much, bringing it down to exhaustion in the third game as well. I mean, what a show, right?
What a show, exactly. All part of the show.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't play Houdini today because, 2-0ing, again, is kind of boring if I just won with Houdini.
Oh,
It's
them
what
some
it is,
fighting
but...
words. You saying that Yen just loses, huh?
No, I'm not saying Yen loses. I'm saying that when I'm playing Houdini, I win.
Oh, okay, I see. You do have quite the
Yeah,
track record.
even if I try to lose, somehow I end up pulling it off. I don't know how it works.
we have
Crazy.
we have video proof of this on Darkblade's Twitch channel, so you're not wrong.
Hey, that is what it is.
That was great, man. It's great to see. Any specific questions or comments by the commentators?
Zach, you go first.
All right. I was gonna ask. I think you've already kind of answered, but I was gonna ask. If you avoided the Houdini Sattler matchup for the Houdini side and your side, just to give Kjet a chance, and it seems like
Yeah,
that
right.
was the call. So
See,
trying
you
to
get
trying
it.
to make
There we
sure
go.
that Houdini Sattler, which is just 100% win rate for you,
It is.
is not making things too uninteresting. But no, I just like to say congrats on the great games. Very entertaining to watch, and you scripted it out perfectly. So
I thank
great
you. Thank you.
job
I'm
with
pretty
that.
proud of that one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what was it like? 4 HP Moon Knight. Pretty
Yep.
good.
Yep.
Yeah, incredibly
Yeah.
close. Yeah, if only you could have lined up the Sattler into the T-Rex though and played with the monitor off. That would have just been something else. So nice try
That
putting
would've
her
been.
putting her on the disadvantage, but
I tried.
Kjet was too smart. He
I
knew
was
that.
pretty sad. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty sad on that last turn. Because for a second I thought we could both end up in negative numbers if I attacked and he blocked with regroup, but I was Khonshu obviously, so that couldn't happen.
Right.
But I was hoping.
Yeah, you can't make it closer than both fighters going negative at the final result.
Yeah,
right?
I was trying. Khonshu, Khonshu does Khonshu things
Man,
sometimes.
Conchu just not taking fatigue or anything. He's like, damage? Nah. Stupid Conchu.
Yeah, I love Moon Knight so much. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to hit hard? He hits hard. You want him to be tanky? He's tanky. You want to play exhaustion? He can play exhaustion. He can do everything.
He really can. He's incredibly versatile and incredibly a good fighter. So no arguments there.
So, ETOCUD, I have 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
My first question is, what are the benefits of wearing sunglasses indoors?
It's easy. There is.
Okay. And my second question is, my second question is, earlier in the
Deep breath, Connor. Compose
My
yourself.
I was calm and you started laughing, and I started laughing because you were laughing. My second question to ETOCUD is, earlier in the stream we almost hit 90 viewers, and now we're at like the 40 to 50 range. So to the people who are considering enrolling in the next tournament, what advice do you have to newer players who are interested in coming into this great competitive scene?
Honestly, play ladder. That's it. Just try to get as many games as you can. But obviously, you can just be naturally talented and win anyways. It is what it is.
like somebody in this call, is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Name's
say
Air
who.
12.
Yeah, I'm not
But
gonna.
some
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
people
I'm not
say-
gonna say myself either. But we all know.
Well, some people say I'm an unmatched genius. I didn't say
Some
it. I
people.
just heard it.
Oh, heard it
Who?
from from who?
The streets.
The streets. Nice. You'll love to see it. But yeah, honestly though, like your ladder response, that's a great point because there's a lot of good players participating in the ladder, and it gives you a lot of exposure to many different matchups and different fighters with the rotating seasons. So yeah, we had that brought up with our interview with Kjet as well, and so the ladder makes a big difference. So definitely, if you guys haven't already tried, go ahead and jump into the ladder. All it takes is you sign up for UM League, which just links to your Discord, so super easy there. It's just like the click of a button, basically, and then you click another button that says join ladder, and there you go, you're in the ladder. And then you just look on the Discord, say looking for game, post your rank, and you just play games, and you rank up from there, and it's all, you just log your results on the UM League website. It's great. So Frank really put a lot of work into that site and making ladder possible, because it wouldn't be feasible to do without, such a great website to track everything and all the ranks and all that. So yeah, definitely jump into the ladder if you guys haven't already, but that'll definitely get you to get up to Ito's level here. So,
Yeah.
so all right, Ito, then I got another
mean, that's
question
tough.
for you. Now you're going into the grand finals, right? And you don't know your opponent yet. But if you had to pick, like, is there one of them that you are more scared to face than the other, or one that you're hoping to play against?
Scared? Let's throw that out the window, because I'll beat either of them. Okay, that part's not an issue. Now, who I'm hoping to play, see, that's a bit tougher. But I mean, Chad has a whole history behind him. I mean, it looked better for me if I beat Chad. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you
Like,
gotta beat the
it's a
reigning
bigger
champion,
pedestal.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I get how it is. But also, now, you're going to be going into kind of an untested waters almost with the best of 5 arsenal. So have you done any preparation for that best of 5?
Well, that's a secret. But yes, I've all jokes aside, I played my fair share of best of 5s this week, because of course I knew I was going to win today, so I just had to prep for the best of 5.
Right. Okay, well, I'm glad that you've got your practice in, you're ready, and honestly, I'm sure you're going to put on a great show tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to it. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, once again, man, congrats. But is there anything else you want to say to the viewers before we sign off?
To the viewers, yeah, I mean, look forward to tomorrow. Put your points on me, and that's it.
But what if you gotta play the underdog odds and bet on your opponent so you can win big?
I mean, if you want to lose points, you can lose points. I don't care.
Great. All right, well, good luck tomorrow, man. It was a pleasure watching you today. You put on a great show, and I'm really looking forward to what you have in store for the grand finals.
All right. Peace.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah. Congrats.
All right, and that's going to just about wrap it up for the first semifinal of the day. Now, remember, in about an hour and a half, we are going to be starting up with the second semifinal, which is going to be Unmatched versus Little Expressionless Animal on this same Twitch channel, so don't go anywhere. We'll have some fun little info slides and whatnot to show in the meantime if you want to check those out and see all the hard work that Alan's put in behind the scenes. Admire his artwork and whatnot. And yeah, so don't go anywhere. But an hour and a half, we will be back. So any final words for the stream, for the chat, for anybody watching, Zach, before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on. I've been doing a lot of hosting, not just for this event, but I did stuff for the Monster Mash, and I started out with Team League back when that ran last year. Freak originally was the one who got me into it. I joined him because he was hosting for some commentary, and I just absolutely fell in love. A lot less stressful than playing yourself at a high level, and I do enjoy that, but I just enjoy talking about the game and watching.
Oh, a little bit of technical difficulties.
And he's gone.
Oh, he's a ghost. He just vanishes.
I can finish his
Into
pitch.
thin air.
So yeah. So everyone, make sure to check out Darkblade on Twitch. He streams all the matches in the elimination bracket leading up to the finals, which is where the legendary Alan 65 development comes in. So big thank you to Alan from Darkblade, and big thank you to Darkblade from Darkblade. So make sure to go to his Twitch, subscribe to him, send him, ask him for his PayPal, send him $2,000, and yeah. So that's Darkblade's whole pitch. Send him thousands of dollars on PayPal. Subscribe to him on Twitch. Yeah, make sure to thank him for his time. He put a lot of like I think he said like 32 plus hours. So just give him a thank you for his time.
Yeah.
He really does a lot for the community. He's a great guy. He gives a lot of people opportunities to commentate with him. He gives a lot of players opportunities to be seen before the semifinals and grand finals. So yeah, Darkblade's definitely a great member of the community, and yeah, just big thank you to him from him.
Yeah, for sure. Well said, Connor. I mean, Darkblade put in so many hours, like you said, to just privately stream all of the top 16 matches and whatnot, and top 8. He really got the majority of the bracket on stream for the viewers, which is just really cool to put in all that time and effort to go out of your way and do that. So huge thanks to Darkblade for that. So yeah, it's twitch.tv/Darkblade113. So definitely make sure you guys go and follow him on Twitch at the very least, so you can keep up with any of his content when he goes live. But also consider giving him a subscription, because it's not that much to each individual person, but it makes a big difference to him as a streamer, just to get a little bit of recognition, for all the hard work he's put in. So that's just been really cool. And yeah, he's a great community member, like you said, Connor. So I'm going to toss it over to you, though, Connor. You got anything
yeah.
you want to say to the viewers before we sign off?
Well, I guess I got to talk again because I just talked for Darkblade. I'll be back tomorrow with Darkblade, so I'll do my long What Happened pitch tomorrow. But yeah, go to TeePublic, look up Hat Chatter, get What Happened merch. I'll do the pitch tomorrow. But to repeat the one I did last time, it's very dangerous to ask what happened with your mouth, because you never know what could happen. So you should save yourself any risk and just buy yourself some What Happened merch from TeePublic.
You just point to the shirt, right?
Huh?
Then you just point to the shirt. You don't even gotta
Point to
say
the
it.
shirt. And also, the R will intimidate your opponent. Like it'll I can hear Alan behind the scenes shaking in fear from the What Happened merch. So it's definitely very very scary, very very menacing. And of course, not of course actually, I have a very special shout out to the one and only Twister Strudel. So go ahead and check out Twister Strudel on YouTube. All of his stuff will be linked, and his Twitch, all of his stuff will be linked. I know he has some great plans brewing up, and he became a father recently, so he's gonna be away from the community once he kind of finishes up these great plans. So give him some love, shoot him a follow, subscription, comment on his videos, interact with him, and be ready, because he is gonna be bringing some incredible Unmatched content before he takes a little bit of time away. So everyone, go check him out and ask him what happened.
Yeah, Twister's a great guy. I actually got to play against him in the bracket in our top 32 match. So that was really cool. And yeah, he really does a great job with his content. He streams on Twitch, and then he uploads to YouTube as well. And he's got just a fun variety of content that he does. It's not all hardcore strategy based like most of my stuff is. It's just like fun, cool little ideas involving Unmatched, as well as like other board games too in general. So it's always a fun time watching his content. So definitely check out Twister Strudel on both Twitch and YouTube. And I'm excited to see what he's got brewing up before he takes a little bit of a break away from Unmatched, seeing as he is going to be, a little bit tied up being a father. So congrats to him. But yeah, go check him out on Twitch and YouTube, and looking forward to it. So that's going to about wrap it up. We will see Darkblade back again, like you said, Connor, tomorrow for the grand finals, so he will get a proper send-off at that time. But I think, Connor, you did pretty well, doing the shout-outs for him. So thanks for that. But as for me, I'm ZeroSkater12. You guys can check me out on YouTube, on Twitch as well, or on Patreon if you want to support me. Go ahead and follow me on Patreon, subscribe, become a patron, and I do a matchup of the month series where you can submit your votes for matchups for every month. There you go. There's the Patreon. Go ahead and check it out. But yeah, you can pitch your ideas for matchup of the month, and maybe get one of your matchups selected for upcoming videos. Also, it's just a way to show support, right? Because I know firsthand how much work it is to be a content creator with YouTube and Twitch and everything, and it's a lot of work, a lot of time, and very very little payoff. So any little bit really makes a big difference to the content creators. It goes a long way. So definitely consider supporting all of your favorite creators out there on whatever platform it may be, whether it's YouTube, Twitch, Patreon, whatever it is. We really appreciate the support from all you out there. So yeah, find me, youtube.com/ZeroSkater12, twitch.tv/ZeroSkater12. Find me on Patreon. I got all my links to everything on YouTube and on Twitch and all that, so it's not too hard to find. But
You forgot your merch.
oh, I do have some merch. It is, I believe it's up on my YouTube, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I heard if you wear Zero Scare 12 merch, he'll actually appear in person and give you unmatched tips and tricks. So
Rumor has it.
everyone, go buy some and try it. And if it doesn't work, then no refunds.
Rumor has it. Yeah, I do have some pretty sweet merch. It was actually my logo was designed by Restoration Games, so huge thanks to them for doing that. It was just super cool to have something custom designed by them. So it's somewhat official, I guess. But yeah, I do have some merch if you want to go check it out. You can find that on Teespring, I believe. So you should be able to find the link on YouTube or whatever. But yeah, again, I appreciate all the support from everybody out there. So. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the first semifinal for the Winter of Champions 2023. So Ito did take the win 2-1 over Kjet, but really close games all around, and that was just a fantastic match to witness. So Ito definitely earned his place in the grand finals, and we're going to find out who his opponent is going to be coming up shortly. It'll just be about an hour and 20 minutes from now. So again, everybody, don't go anywhere. We will catch you at that time. But real quick, huge thanks to Restoration Games, as always, for sponsoring these amazing events and for making this incredible game that we all love. Also, thanks to Vorpal Board for giving us a great platform to showcase these streams on. It looks real nice and clean. And, of course, to 645 Development. Alan is the guy who runs all the... Yeah, for real. I think he is single-handedly... responsible for getting probably half of these players into the scene, right, into the community, because people see these things and they're like, wow, this is like official, this is real, and it really just brings the hype and the excitement for the events, and really makes a big, nice grand finale send-off to each of these. So huge thanks to 645 Development for doing that. And that's going to do it. Also to UM League as well, Frank, with the UM League website. So a lot of people involved in making this tournament and this community what it is, and it's really a great place to be. So if you have not jumped into like the online Unmatched community, I definitely recommend you do so, because it's full of great people and tons of fun to be had all over the place. So thank you all for watching, and we will catch you all in the next one, about an hour and 20 minutes, so don't go anywhere. We're going to have the second semifinal coming up. So looking forward to it, but thank you all. We'll catch you in just a bit.
Oh, wait, one more thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I thought the stream was going to cut off before I said it. John, I have a favor to ask you for the next stream that's coming up.
What's that, Connor?
Can you ask the losing player what happened for me?
Of course I will.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, now you can end the stream. Sorry, Alan.
No problem. All right, guys, we'll catch you all in just a bit.